Chapter 5:12. Upon seeing the three silhouettes before the Eye King walking towards the violet thunder sword drum formation, those who knew of their identities all sighed in their hearts. Qin Wendian was finished this time around. The Warlord Hall was a place where the Grand Shang Empire specially nurtured the most outstanding of the younger generations. There were all sorts of cultivation arts and innate techniques there, and being able to enter the Warlord Hall was a great honor to many. This meant that they had entered the core of Grand Shang, becoming a trusted aide of the royal clan and would receive the best nurturing. The younger princes were all cultivating in the Warlord Hall, each leading a group of geniuses. These people would be the foundation for them to contend for supremacy, and in the future, they would accompany them to rule the world. The various princes of the royal clan would often have conflicts because of the competition for the geniuses of the War King Hall. All of them wanted the best geniuses to follow them, vying for supremacy in the royal sacred sect, becoming characters of the royal sacred sect, able to command an entire region. This was what true authority was, even greater compared to the authority of the royal clan of Grand Shang. Although the Grand Shang Empire could rule over a vast territory, there were still the 9 great sects and the Grand Zhou Empire that could contend against them. In fact, in the sacred royal region, there were many extremely tyrannical powers under the 9 great sects that wouldn't listen to the commands of the Grand Shang Empire, not giving them any face at all. Only the royal sacred sect was the absolute hegemon of the Grand Shang Empire. At this moment, 3 experts from the Warlord Hall walked out, and their cultivation bases were all extremely high. Although Qin Wendian's talent was extraordinary, he would still be defeated by them. However, this Qin Wendian was truly arrogant. He wasn't in a hurry to join the Great Earth sect or pass the test of the Battle Sword sect. He simply stood there in the middle of the training ground, closing his eyes and waiting quietly. He had no fear at all, and in his eyes, so what if the Warlord Hall was from the Grand Shang Empire? He would still be waiting for them. The spectators also didn't know if Qin Wendian had absolute confidence in himself, or if he didn't know the depths of the Warlord Hall. Hence, he made such a rash decision. Although the violet thunder sword drum formation was powerful, it basically couldn't obstruct the 3 experts from the Warlord Hall. The 3 of them used tyrannical methods to trample over the violet thunder sword drum formation. Before absolute strength, there was nothing that could obstruct them. Upon seeing such strength, the crowd couldn't help but feel worried for Qin Wendian. This young man who dared to challenge Junyu, a disciple of the royal sacred sect, would be as domineering as before. The experts from the 6 great sects of Shenqing City all had killing intent in their eyes. This time around, Qin Wendian would die for sure. Shang Tong was the Eye King of Grand Shang. What sort of character was he? If he wanted Qin Wendian to die, how could Qin Wendian still be alive? In the entire Grand Shang Empire, there were only a few who could defy this young Eye King. After the 3 of them stepped onto the martial arts field, one of them strolled towards Qin Wendian. His domineering eyes stared at Qin Wendian. His gaze seemed to be able to pierce through a person's body. It was extremely sharp. "You have to die." That person roared. Instantly, a brilliant light illuminated the skies as his astral souls and astral novas erupted forth. Golden sharpness manifested in the air as a terrifying vortex manifested there. It was as though even weapons and sabers would be sucked into that vortex, being shredded into dust. In front of that vortex, numerous incomparably fearsome golden spears could be seen, capable of penetrating through everything. This person erupted forth with the aura of a 6th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign the moment he appeared. The instant he released his aura, ordinary 6th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns would have to prostrate themselves before him. That terrifying pressure frenziedly gushed towards Qin Wendian, as though it wanted to tear Qin Wendian's body into pieces. Qin Wendian released his 4th astral nova as the king's sword floated in the air. Sword chi ravaged the air, wanting to tear apart everything, as though wanting to force the myriad of enemies to submit. The windstorm that was gushing towards him was all torn apart, blocked outside, unable to corrode his body. His entire person was enveloped by a screen of light. "You are not worthy." Qin Wendian's voice was ice cold. That person snorted coldly, and instantly, the golden spears above his head erupted forth, streaking through the air, resembling golden bolts of lightning as they shot towards Qin Wenyin. The might they exuded seemed to be able to penetrate through everything. Bzz. Qin Wentian's heavenly astral sword slashed out, causing the air to tremble as it blocked the golden spears. Humming sounds rang out unceasingly as the astral novas of the two of them clashed against each other. An incomparably sharp tempest ravaged the platform, causing the eyes of that person to flash with a cold smile. Your astral novas are very powerful, but you won't be able to escape the fate of death. As the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying, devouring energy gushed forth from him. Qin Wentian's black robes fluttered in the wind as he lost control of his body and was about to be sucked into the tempest. The heavenly astral sword hovering above his head also felt the terrifying, devouring tempest. The long spears in Qin Wentian's hands abruptly vanished, causing the eyes of the spectators to gleam with sharpness. Was this fellow crazy? He actually kept his long spear away at this moment? At this moment, they discovered that Qin Wentian's body was undergoing a transformation. His body was covered with a layer of demonic armor, as though he was clad in a divine weapon. His arms were like the arms of demons, exuding a boundless sharpness. His vitality flourished as his blood thrummed, emitting terrifying rumbling sounds. He seemed to be a descendant of a demon king from the supreme ancient immortal realms. Standing there, he was like the sovereign of the demon world. You are still far from it. Qin Wenyin took a step forward as a thunderous boom rang out, causing the earth to tremble. It was unknown how terrifying the devouring energy was, but he ignored it and continued forward. As his brows furrowed, a fearsome will of mandates gushed into his opponent's sea of consciousness. However, Qin Wentian's opponent's will was exceedingly powerful. He was actually able to use his tyrannical will to resist. Frowning, his opponent's silhouette flickered as he dashed towards Qin Wenyin. With a wave of his hand, countless sharp weapons instantly shot towards Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyin slammed out with his palms as bell chimes rang out. His opponent's heart pounded violently, as though it was about to be torn apart. Return! Qin Wenyin blasted out with another palm strike, causing the entire space to tremble. A supreme might gushed forth, actually sweeping everything back. That person coldly snorted as the devouring energy grew increasingly terrifying. It was like the mandate of devouring was capable of devouring everything. Boundless attacks were swept into the air, converging into the tempest, causing the formless shockwaves to be weakened by several degrees. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he executed stellar transposition. His entire person was like a bolt of lightning as he appeared before his opponent. A ferocious punch blasted out, destroying everything in its path. His opponent could feel the ferocity of the punch, yet his countenance didn't change at all. He placed his palms before his chest and abruptly clasped them together, directly blocking Qin Wentian's attack. A fearsome devouring energy gushed forth, causing Qin Wentian's blood to flow outwards. His attacks were being devoured unceasingly. What a powerful mandate of devouring! Qin Wentian's heart trembled as a terrifying light shot out from the center of his brows. At the same time, his martial spirit, dreamscape, manifested. His opponent closed his eyes, as though he didn't want to be disturbed. However, the mandate of devouring directly gushed into his mind as numerous scarlet demon halberds pierced towards his head. That's fake. His countenance was like lightning. Relying solely on his perception, he tightly grabbed onto Qin Wentian's fist, devouring the energy within. I'll let you devour it. A voice thundered in his mind. After which, he felt a surge of bloodline energy gushing into his body, being devoured by him. But at this moment, the blood-colored light directly corroded his body, akin to a destructive curse, destroying the life force in his body. Not good. His countenance drastically changed as he abruptly retracted his hand. But at the same instant, the blood-colored light frenziedly gushed into his body, destroying all life force. His body started to corrode, turning into dried bones and puddles of blood. However, at this moment, the spectators all had strange expressions on their faces. This expert had the strength to contend against Qin Wenyan. Why did he suddenly stop? He clearly still had the strength to continue fighting, yet he actually gave up all resistance as his body collapsed onto the ground. Careful! Someone behind him warned. That expert abruptly opened his eyes only to see Qin Wenyan right in front of him. Qin Wenyan's palms were frenziedly blasting out, causing the expert's countenance to turn pale white. That was the dreamscape. Ultimately, he was still invaded by the dream force. Bang! As the palms slammed down, it was as though an ancient bell had directly smashed into his heart. Boundless pulsating waves of energy gathered towards his heart, causing him to cough out fresh blood. His heart was destroyed and he died instantly. The experts from the War Emperor Hall of Grand Shang were all killed. The other two experts rushed over only to see Qin Wenyan's palms blotting out the sky. He directly blasted out a blood-colored curse imprint. The two of them slammed out with their palms at the same time, causing a raging tempest to arise. With a thunderous boom, the two of them only felt a terrifying corrosive energy gushing into their bodies, causing their astral novas to erupt violently. Boom! The sound of the bell rang out, causing their hearts to tremble, causing them to groan in pain. But even so, they still didn't hesitate to rush forward. Stellar transposition, Qin Wenyan's silhouette vanished once more. Their perception was terrifying, and they abruptly turned around. Swish! The keening of a sword, the will of the mandate of sword melody at the transformation boundary. Two beams of blood-colored light slashed towards the throats of the two experts. They explosively retreated as boundless energy gathered at their throats. Boom! Qin Wenyan vanished once more, slashing out with another sword strike. This time around, it was aimed at their backs. Scram! The two of them were forced into such a sorry state. Both of them were enraged, and they stabbed out with their fingers, causing the space around them to tremble. But at this moment, a scarlet demon halberd appeared, directly slashing towards them. The will of the dream devil gushed into their minds, causing the color of the sky to change. Poochie! A light sound rang out as one of them died. His head was pierced through by the scarlet demon halberd. The other expert wanted to flee, yet he only saw the scarlet demon halberd slicing through his head as the crescent moon blade sliced through it. Another light sound rang out as the arm of the last expert was severed. He screamed in agony. He finally managed to extricate himself from the dream devil state. Although it was only for an instant, it was like a nightmare to him. It's the power of dreams. That expert roared, causing the hearts of the crowd to tremble. They finally understood why Qin Wenyan's spear was so invincible. So it turned out that every single spear strike of his contained the power of dreams. And now, he even used the scarlet demon halberd. Poochie! As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wenyan's silhouette directly appeared. The scarlet demon halberd had no way to block it. It pierced right into Qin Wenyan's body. Release him! A thunderous roar reverberated throughout the entire training field. The crowd turned their gazes over and saw the Eye King standing up. His eyes were terrifying. Out of the three experts under him, two had already fallen. This was a slap to his face. Qin Wenyan turned his gaze onto Shang Tong. His eyes were filled with an unbridled arrogance as he stared at Shang Tong. Poochie! A light sound rang out. The scarlet demon halberd directly pierced into his opponent's heart, penetrating through his body. After which, the halberd abruptly flung the corpse towards Shang Tong. Boom! The corpse landed accurately at Shang Tong's feet. Qin Wenyan pointed the scarlet demon halberd in that direction as a terrifying arrogance flashed in his eyes. He coldly spoke, "Who the hell do you think you are? Are you even qualified to command me?" Chapter 5:13. Qin Wenyan's tyrannical voice caused the entire space to turn silent. Not only did he speak arrogantly, he even pointed the halberd in his hands at the Eye King, radiating a terrifying blood-colored light. It was as though he was saying, "If you, Shang Tong, come up here, I dare to use my halberd to chop you down from the battle platform." The experts from the 6 transcendent powers of Xianqing City were all stunned by Qin Wenyan's domineering attitude. Towering killing intent gushed forth in their hearts. This Qin Wenyan actually dared to openly challenge the I King's prestige. This time around, there was no way he could survive. What level of talent was the I King? How could he allow a nobody to challenge him? Even if this person's combat prowess was terrifying, so what of it? He was the I King, one of the most doted upon princes of the royal sacred sect. In the future, he might even become a heaven chosen of the royal sacred sect, or an existence that could control the entire Grand Shang Empire. There had never been anyone who dared to defy him before, let alone provoke him. Once, there was a great sect in Grand Shang Empire that was extremely arrogant because of their strength. The young master of that sect was also a heaven's chosen, extremely dazzling, and felt that his status wasn't inferior to the I King. Once, he fought with the I King for a treasure, and in the end, the young master of that sect was killed by the I King on the streets. That sect wanted to take revenge on the I King, seeking justice from the royal clan. But in the end, that sect disappeared from Grand Shang, razed to flat ground. From then on, who in Grand Shang Empire didn't know that some people were destined to be existences they couldn't afford to antagonize? Let alone the fact that the I King had already started his path of rise. His cultivation base was at the peak of the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper, his combat prowess was as high as the heavens, and he had even slain a demon-level character at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper. He had many trump cards up his sleeves, and just based on his talent alone, he already had an extremely high combat prowess. At this moment, his gaze was fixed on Qin Wenyan. That pair of golden eyes of his seemed to be able to suck Qin Wenyan in. That terrifying beam of light contained a fearsome mandate. Qin Wenyan actually felt a golden beast lunging towards him, incomparably ferocious, wanting to tear his will apart. However, how strong was Qin Wenyan's will? As long as the scarlet demon halberd was pointed at him, there would be nothing for him to fear. His eyes met Shang Tong's, and similarly, a terrifying will energy gushed into Shang Tong's eyes, as though they were engaged in a battle of wills. Do you know who you're talking to? An old man beside Shang Tong coldly spoke, glaring at Qin Wenyan as killing intent gushed out from him. Qin Wenyan glanced at the old man, revealing a look of contempt. He had already sent someone to kill him, yet he still wanted to reveal his identity to intimidate him? What was the point? Since they were mortal enemies, they had to kill each other regardless of their identities. You killed my subordinates, so I should personally kill you. However, this is the examination battlefield of the 9 great sects. If I make a move, I will be degrading myself. Shang Tong spoke indifferently as if he was telling Qin Wenyan that it would be an extremely easy thing for him to kill Qin Wenyan. However, he felt that his status was respected, so he disdained to make a move against Qin Wenyan. Either come up or shut your mouth. Who doesn't know how to speak arrogant words? What's the point? Qin Wenyan emotionlessly replied to Shang Tong. You're right. Who doesn't know how to speak arrogant words? I once killed my way out of an army of thousands of men and horses, undergoing hellish tempering. The cultivation bases of those I killed were all higher than me. If you can survive today, maybe you will have the qualifications to be my opponent in the future. At that time, I will kill you again. Shang Tong faintly spoke. He was the I King, a heaven chosen of the royal Shang Empire. He was one of the most dazzling characters in the younger generation of Grand Shang. Although this Qin Wenyan had provoked him, given his status and cultivation base, if he directly acted to suppress Qin Wenyan, although it was simple, he would definitely be criticized by others. But since Qin Wenyan was rude to him, there was naturally no way he would spare him. Hence, he said that if Qin Wenyan could survive today, only then would he have the qualifications to be his opponent. Sorry, I've never seen you as my opponent. If you were at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper, I could trample you to death with a single stomp. Qin Wenyan faintly replied. Although his words were arrogant, the spectators couldn't help but to ponder. This man didn't even need to unleash a second spear strike to kill 5th level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns, he could even kill 6th level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns. If a 4th level Heavenly Dipper sovereign was at the same level as him, it would truly be insufficient. If the I King, Shang Tong, was at the same level as him, and the two of them fought, who would be the stronger one? It was truly hard to say. However, Shang Tong, who was at the peak of the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper, was clearly stronger than Qin Wenyin. There was no doubt about this. There's no point in talking so much. I want to see how you can survive today. Shang Tong's voice was extremely calm from the start, exuding an aura of disdain. He stared at the crowd as he spoke. Whoever kills him shall be rewarded with a heaven-mending pill. As the sound of Shang Tong's voice faded, it instantly caused a huge commotion. The entire space was in an uproar, incomparably shocked. Many people had expressions of madness on their faces. The heaven-mending pill was able to make up for the disadvantages of astral souls, allowing one's astral nova to condense even more astral energy, increasing the power and attack power of the astral nova. Naturally, this pill couldn't be used to defy the heavens. Although the heaven-mending pill could strengthen one's astral nova, it was only limited to this level. If one stepped into the celestial phenomenon realm, the talent of others would still be able to leave you in the dust. But no matter what, the temptation of the heaven-mending pill to Heavenly Dipper sovereigns was simply too great. Not only that, this pill was extremely rare, a 5th-ranked pill that was extremely valuable. Even if you had a shocking amount of wealth, you wouldn't be able to purchase it. The reason why Shang Tong was able to take out so many pills was because he was a prince of the Grand Shang Empire and had an esteemed status. The Grand Shang Empire had its own pill concoction hall and had recruited the best alchemy grandmasters in Grand Shang. Naturally, Shang Tong would be able to take out the best pills. Especially now that there were many outstanding Heavenly Dipper sovereigns who were preparing to participate in the recruitment test of the Royal Sacred Sect. They would naturally be facing the gathering of heroes from all over the world, and naturally they would have to make the most preparations, using their strongest stance to welcome the challenge, striving to enter the Royal Sacred Sect, ascending to the heavens with a single step. The heaven-mending pill captured their hearts. Many experts were itching to give it a try. A single person wouldn't be able to kill Qin Wenyin, but if a group of experts attacked together, no matter how strong Qin Wenyin was, he would still die. Qin Wenyin swept his gaze over to the crowd. He discovered that even some of the disciples from the 9 great sects had expressions of interest on their faces, as though they were thinking of killing him. Only to see that at this moment, he could sense an expert from the Great Earth sect stealthily retreating, walking down the spectator stands. After which, he discovered an expert from the Violet Thunder sect stealthily retreating, stepping into the crowd. The experts from the Sky Poison Valley and Blood Devil sect all took a detour, retreating before gathering in the direction of the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation. As to why they acted, they had already obtained the approval of the elders of their respective sections. Qin Wentian's combat prowess was tyrannical, and his talent was extraordinary. Yet he had offended so many people. Since they couldn't obtain him, they might as well destroy him. There were also some powers from the 9 great sects that didn't act. They initially wanted to recruit Qin Wenyin as their subordinates, but it seemed that Qin Wenyin wouldn't be able to escape death. There were even some who wanted to kick Qin Wenyin when he was down, thinking that since Qin Wenyin wouldn't be able to survive, they might as well snatch the heaven-mending pill. In the direction of the Battle Sword sect, Lin Shui coldly laughed in his heart when he saw this scene. These great sects truly had the same style as before. If they couldn't obtain something, they would destroy it. Your actions are truly disappointing. If those from the 9 great sects act, you guys can go and experience it for yourselves. Lin Shui spoke to the people behind him, his words causing the hearts of many to tremble. The Battle Sword sect didn't even bother to conceal their intentions, directly wanting to help Qin Wenyin. Could it be that this battle would evolve into a battle between the 9 great sects? Someone coldly snorted, but the voice was ethereal, nobody knew where it originated from. Qin Wenyin silently rejoiced in his heart that he didn't make his choice too early. When he was in Grand Xia, he had already experienced the various transcendent powers. Everyone in the world would do anything for the sake of benefits. If he wanted to join a sect, he would naturally choose the most suitable one. The Battle Sword sect has always done things as they please. But this time around, do you want to be embroiled in the battle between me and him? Don't forget, I will also be participating in the examination of the Royal Sacred Sect. At that time, If those from the battle sword sect participate, Shang Tong coldly snorted, actually threatening the battle sword sect. You still don't have the qualifications to speak to me like this. Lin Shuai's eyes turned over, staring at Shang Tong. Instantly, numerous sharp swords pierced towards Shang Tong, causing him to explosively retreat. At the same time, the experts from Grand Shang rushed out, slamming out with their palms as the sharp swords whistled through the air, piercing through the air. Lin Shuai's gaze slowly shifted over, no longer looking at Shang Tong. He then spoke, "Next time when you speak to elders, be more polite." As expected of the battle sword sect, domineering and fearless, the spectators didn't expect that a conflict would erupt between the battle sword sect and Shang Tong. This battle was getting more and more fascinating. It was said that the battle sword sect had always been at odds with the battle sword sect, and it was the same in the royal sacred sect as well. Shang Tong's countenance grew incredibly unsightly. This person actually dared to directly act against him. His golden eyes turned cold as he icily spoke, "I will remember the matters today. In the future, during the examination of the royal sacred sect, I will make you all regret it." If this place wasn't the territory of the Grand Shang Empire, based on your words of threat to the battle sword sect, I would have already killed you directly. Lin Shuai's eyes were emotionless. He couldn't even be bothered to look at Shang Tong. He had always done things as he pleased. How could he allow a junior to threaten him? When the crowd heard Lin Shuai's words, they didn't doubt his words at all. If this place wasn't the Xian King city of Grand Shang, Lin Shuai might really dare to do some crazy things. Shang Tong coldly snorted again. He didn't say anything more and returned to his seat. Qin Wenyin witnessed everything. He originally came here today to kill the Six Chosen, but he didn't expect that his identity would be exposed, causing a storm to erupt once more, and even causing the 9 great sects to be implicated. However, this storm caused him to have a clearer understanding of the 9 great sections. His understanding of them was no longer limited to the rumors he heard before. Since I want to join a sect, I should do it with a bang, telling the sect that their judgment wasn't wrong. Qin Wenyin abruptly spoke, his words causing the gazes of the crowd to turn to him. Qin Wenyin slowly walked out, walking in the direction of the Qinghua mountain. After which, he wrapped his arms around the mountain and extended his perception outwards. After which, he abruptly exerted force, causing rumbling sounds to echo out as the mountain was directly lifted 3 feet off the ground. He passed the test of the Qinghua mountain. With a thunderous boom, Qin Wenyin placed the ancient mountain down. He retrieved his long spear and walked in the direction of the Great Earth sect. Staring at the Great Earth puppet, his silhouette flickered as he stabbed out with his spear, causing the entire space to tremble. The instant the long spear landed on the body of the Great Earth puppet, the pulsating energy of the Great Earth puppet engulfed every part of it, crushing it into dust. In an instant, the Great Earth puppet exploded. The test of the Great Earth sect passed. Chapter 5:14. What is he trying to do? Qin Wenyin consecutively passed the tests of 2 great sects, causing the hearts of the spectators to tremble violently. For the tests of the 9 great sects, regardless of the Qinghua Mountains or the Great Earth sect, they were all exceedingly difficult to pass. Only a select few would be able to join the 9 great sections. However, Qin Wenyin easily passed the tests of the Qinghua Mountains and the Great Earth sect. Such dominance caused the hearts of the spectators to seethe with excitement. The young man on the stage walked towards the direction of the Violet Thunder sect. Staring at the silhouette of the puppet bathed in violet lightning, he stepped out. Has he gone mad? Could it be that he wants to pass all the tests of the 9 great sects? Qin Wenyan's actions shocked everyone. The countenances of the experts from the 6 transcendent powers all turned ashen. It was already extremely difficult for the geniuses of their sects to pass the test, yet Qin Wenyin was able to pass it so effortlessly. At this moment, everyone was thinking that the deaths of the geniuses from their sects weren't unjust. Boom! Qin Wenyin stepped out as Sword Qi howled in rage. The puppet of Violet Thunder punched out, yet Qin Wenyan's countenance didn't change at all. He continued to take a total of 5 steps, and on the 5th step, Qin Wenyan groaned in agony. This caused the spectators to silently muse that although Qin Wenyan was domineering, the tests of the 9 great sects weren't so simple. Most probably, the Violet Thunder sect wouldn't be able to pass the final 2 attacks. Boom! Qin Wenyan took a 6th step. The puppet of Violet Thunder punched out for the 6th time. This time around, the lightning and the sword might collided, causing thunderous rumbling sounds to echo out unceasingly. Qin Wenyan's countenance was as calm as ever as he forcefully took the 7th step. As his foot landed, the entire space around him was enveloped by an overwhelming killing intent, sweeping everything away. The puppet of Violet Thunder punched out for the 7th time, colliding with the sword chi and dissipating it. Qin Wenyan flicked his sleeves as he turned and departed. It was as though the test of the Violet Thunder sect was nothing to him, not even worthy of a mention. The 3 great sects are too domineering. This fellow's talent is too terrifying. The experts from the 9 great sects have already started to enter the Violet Thunder Swordrum formation to kill him, yet he still wants to pass the tests of the other 6 great sects? Next, under the shocked gazes of the spectators, Qin Wenyan lifted the axe of the heaven-cleaving manner and cleaved it apart, forcibly passing the test. During the Divine Dragon Castle's test, he transformed into a terrifying demonic dragon and soared into the sky. He fought against the illusory demonic dragon and finally broke the dragon formation. For the test of the Blood Devil Palace, the blood in Qin Wenyan's body seethed with excitement. He had no fear of anything as he bathed in blood and slaughtered his way through the formation of a devil nest, passing the test. Then, under everyone's shocked gazes, he forcefully passed the Sky Poison Valley's test. The test of the Forgotten Immortal Tower was extremely terrifying. It was an illusory formation formed by a group of beautiful women, filled with temptation that could cause people to sink into endless lust, unable to extricate themselves. However, Qin Wenyan's state of mind was extremely resolute. He remained unmoved. No matter how many beautiful women there were, they were all like skeletons in front of him. He disregarded everything and wasn't tempted at all. He passed the test of the Forgotten Immortal Tower and even passed the tests of the 8 great sections. Everyone was already numb to Qin Wenyan's domineering strength. Finally, he walked to the entrance of the Battle Sword sect. For the test of the Battle Sword sect, if one didn't have a resolute heart, they would die for sure. This was something Lin Shuai had said before. Qin Wenyan didn't hesitate at all. He stepped into the sword chi, basking in its might. There was no fear in his heart. His heart was filled with sincerity and determination. Step by step, millions of sword chi pierced through his body, yet his heart didn't waver. Finally, he stepped out and passed the test of the Battle Sword sect. The tests of the 9 great sects were all passed. The entire space was silent. Qin Wenyan acted as though there was no one else present. Domineeringly passing the tests of the 9 great sects caused the hearts of everyone to tremble. Those who passed the tests earlier were initially feeling complacent, but now, their complacency had completely vanished. Compared to Qin Wenyan, what they had achieved was not even worth mentioning. Madman! Ji Shui was deeply shocked by what Qin Wenyan had done. He was crazy when he was seizing the constellation fruits, and now he was even crazier. Indeed, he's too crazy. Su Feng was also shocked, as great waves rose in his heart. He knew that his talent wasn't weak, but right now, he felt that it was ridiculous. So it turned out that some people could really be so outstanding. Even for Qin Wenyan's enemies, they were all stunned by what he had accomplished. The countenances of the experts from the 6 great sects were all incredibly ugly to behold, but the killing intent in their hearts grew increasingly intense. Shang Yu's beautiful eyes froze. Once, when Qin Wenyan fought against her for the spatial brush, she was still high and mighty, thinking that he was just an ordinary mortal. Yet he actually dared to fight against her? He simply didn't know the immensity of death. But now, when she stared at the black-robed young man, she couldn't help but feel a sense of inferiority. This was someone who dared to oppose the disciple of an elder of the royal sacred sect, Junyu. He even dared to point his divine weapon at Junyu and Shang Tong. All of these were things she didn't dare to do. No matter how crazy you are, you still have to die. Jun Yu's countenance was incredibly unsightly to behold. In Grand Xia, he had already experienced Qin Wentian's craziness. Qin Wentian didn't hesitate to pay any price to use the immortal vanquishing swordplay, causing the great Solar Chen clan to walk towards their doom. But since he was his enemy, he might as well kill him as soon as possible. The higher his talent, the more he had to die. Many experts from the 9 great sects had already passed the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation when Qin Wentian passed the test. They had personally witnessed how tyrannical Qin Wentian was, but this didn't hinder the killing intent in their hearts. They had to obtain the heaven-mending pill for sure. Only then would they have a higher chance of becoming a disciple of the Royal Sacred Sect when they participated in the recruitment test. As they thought of this, they surrounded Qin Wentian. Evidently, they weren't prepared to fight against Qin Wentian one by one. The deaths of the 3 subordinates of Shang Tong were still fresh in their minds. How could they allow the same thing to happen again? Although it would be somewhat embarrassing to surround and kill Qin Wentian, they couldn't care less. The experts from the 9 great sects felt their hearts twitching when they saw this scene. They had personally witnessed how Qin Wentian passed the test and faintly felt as though they had missed out on something. But now, there was no path of retreat. Since they couldn't obtain Qin Wentian, they had to destroy him. If the other sects managed to obtain a demon-level talent, it would definitely be a threat to their sect. Given the current situation, there was an 80 to 90% chance that Qin Wentian would join the Battle Sword sect. The Battle Sword sect had chosen to act for him at the most crucial moment. Qin Wentian didn't even glance at the experts surrounding him. After passing the test, he turned his gaze in the direction of the Battle Sword sect as a smile appeared on his face. Junior wants to borrow the opportunity of the 9 great sects to knock down the mountain gate of the Battle Sword sect. As the sound of his voice faded, silence filled the air. As expected, Qin Wentian had decided to join the Battle Sword sect. The experts from the Battle Sword sect all stood up. Lin Shuai also stood up with a smile on his face. He had originally said this on behalf of Qin Wentian. Even if Qin Wentian didn't open his mouth, he would have officially invited Qin Wentian to join the Battle Sword sect. After all, he had passed the test earlier as well. Lin Shuai understood that since Qin Wentian had taken the initiative to say that he wanted to join the Battle Sword sect, he was naturally returning the favor. Since the Battle Sword sect had chosen to act for him, he naturally wanted to enter the Battle Sword sect in the most dazzling manner possible. Without a doubt, the Battle Sword sect would instantly become the center of attention. As expected, the experts from the other 8 great sects felt their hearts turning cold. Qin Wentian had indeed joined the Battle Sword sect. In that case, he couldn't blame them. Naturally. Lin Shuai had a smile on his face as he stared at Qin Wentian. "Come up here now, I want to see who dares to touch you. Killing indiscriminately and yet you want to leave so easily? Ridiculous to the extreme. I'm afraid you won't be able to protect this young man with just a single sentence from you." Jun Yu coldly spoke. How could he allow Qin Wentian to leave with the Battle Sword sect just like that? Although this young man is extraordinary and passed the test of the Battle Sword sect, the matter regarding the training ground has yet to be settled. Let's wait a little longer. An expert from the Violet Thunder sect spoke, wanting to make Qin Wentian stay behind. Killing indiscriminately? A cold smile appeared on Lin Shuai's face. How shameless must one be to say such words? Do you want him to stand there and let your people kill him? So many 6th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns died in his hands, and they even joined forces. And now, you guys even sent out over 10 experts of this level. Do you guys still have any face? Beside Lin Shuai, an old man from the Battle Sword sect couldn't stand it any longer as he coldly snorted. Hee, no matter what, so many experts have already entered the training ground. We can't just disperse like this, right? An expert from the Qinghua Mountain spoke, his words causing Qin Wentian's eyes to flicker. Seems like the people from the Qinghua Mountain had rejected his invitation twice, and they were feeling some resentment in their hearts. At this moment, Qin Wentian's eyes flickered as he stared in the direction of the Violet Thunder Sword Drum formation. He only saw a silhouette slowly walking over, passing through the formation. Qin Wendian stared at that silhouette. Her countenance was as cold as ice, akin to a snow lotus on an icy mountain. She possessed a supreme beauty, yet she seemed so far out of reach. Qin slowly walked out, and an instant later, she stood in front of Qin Wenyin, causing several people to notice her presence. What a beautiful woman. Cold, just like a beauty in the snow. Where did she come from? The princess of Xianqing City, Shangyu, is extremely famous and has a peerless beauty. But when compared to this woman, she actually pales in comparison. The eyes of many turned sluggish as they stared at Qin, unable to shift their eyes away. Even the experts from the 9 great sects were all stunned by her beauty. Shang Tong's golden eyes gleamed with a resplendent light. He had seen countless beauties in his life, and he had never forgotten to enjoy the pleasures of beauties. Hence, he requested the Xianqing city to send Shangyu to the royal palace to be his concubine. But after seeing Qin, his interest in Shangyu actually dimmed significantly. Who are you? Are you willing to join my Grand Shang Empire? Shang Tong stared at Qin as he spoke. However, Qin didn't even glance at him, directly ignoring his words. Qin Wenyin indifferently glanced at Shang Tong, his eyes gleaming with coldness. After which, he turned to Qin and asked in a low voice, "Why are you here?" "I'm here to help you." Qin spoke in a melodious voice. She stared at the silhouettes in front of her as a cold light flickered in her eyes. Qin took a step forward, and in an instant, a terrifying spatial tempest engulfed the entire martial stage. All the experts on the stage felt as though their bodies were bound by the spatial tempest. Their countenances were as pale as paper, and as the tempest swept over them. How powerful, how can she be so powerful? Several experts from the 9 great sects stood up, their eyes gleaming with sharpness. Peak of the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper, mandate of space at the perfection boundary of the 2nd level. Qin Wenyin was also stunned by the power of Qin Er's will of mandates. She was at the peak of the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper, with a mandate at the perfection boundary. Not only that, it was the mandate of space. In this training ground, she was simply an invincible existence. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. Qin was so powerful. Chapter 5:15. The cultivation of one's mandate depended purely on one's comprehension. Many cultivators had no way to break through because they were stuck at the boundary of their mandates. Normally speaking, only those at the peak of Heavenly Dipper would have a mandate at the perfection boundary of the 2nd level. In fact, ordinary cultivators wouldn't even be able to do so. But Qin was only at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper, yet her mandate of space had already reached the perfection boundary. For those whose mandates were far ahead of their cultivation base, their accomplishments would definitely be terrifying. There was no need to worry about not being able to break through. This was an ironclad rule. Hence, nobody doubted that Qin would step into the celestial phenomenon realm. Although this realm was able to stop countless stellar martial cultivators, it definitely wouldn't be able to stop an existence like her. Mandate of space at the perfection boundary. Shang Tong's golden eyes froze. Earlier, he still wanted to recruit Qin into the royal palace and make her his woman. But now, he understood that he might not be able to control such a person. With a mandate of space at the perfection boundary, in addition to the fact that they were both at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper, even he wouldn't have any chance of victory against this woman. But what made it hard for Shang Tong to accept was that such an outstanding woman was actually here to help Qin Wenyin. It's her. When Jun Yu saw Qin, he immediately recognized her. When he was in Grand Xia, he had met this woman before. Although Qin wasn't very strong to him, he still had a deep impression of her. Her temperament was too extraordinary. Qin, I haven't met with any life-threatening danger yet. Qin Wenyin transmitted his voice to Qin as a smile appeared on his face. With over 10 experts at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper joining hands to kill him, he would indeed be in danger. But after all, they hadn't acted yet. If it was before, Qin wouldn't have appeared. But now, Qin actually appeared earlier than expected, causing him to be somewhat taken aback. Seems like as the time they spent together grew longer, Qing was slowly changing. After all, it had been close to 10 years, and Qing had always been accompanying him in the shadows. In the past, she only listened to Fairy Qingmei's orders. Back then, to Qing, it was a mission. But now, protecting Qin Wenyan was no longer as simple as the mission given to her by Fairy Qingmei. Oh! Qing blinked, and just when Qin Wenyan thought that Qing wouldn't continue to bother with him, he heard a reply. But they bullied you. A clear and melodious voice reached Qin Wenyan's ears, causing Qin Wenyan to be stunned. Warmth flowed through his heart. Although it sounded strange, wasn't this just like Qing's personality? A gentle smile could be seen on his face as he stared at the beautiful silhouette in front of him. After which, he took a step forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with Qing. Qing, let me do it. Qin Wenyan spoke in a low voice. Qing glanced at him before nodding her head. I'll help you from the back. Qin Wenyan didn't reject. A violent aura gushed forth from him as he advanced forward. Qing unleashed her mandate of space at the perfection boundary, capable of severing the space between them. Despite their frenzied attacks, they discovered that they had no way to break through the spatial barrier. Bzz. A raging wind gusted by as Qin Wenyan stabbed out with his scarlet demon halberd. The spatial barrier between Qin Wenyan and that expert abruptly shattered, causing the countenance of that expert to stiffen. After which, the scarlet demon halberd directly descended upon him as the terrifying power of a dream devil instantly occupied his mind. Numerous terrifying scenes appeared in his mind: a blood-colored space, countless demonic halberds, the heavens and earth darkened. Qin Wenyan brandished his scarlet demon halberd, akin to a devil god. That expert had no strength to resist at all. Qin Wenyan's mandate of dreams was already at the transformation boundary of the second level. Now that the scarlet demon halberd was augmented, how terrifying would it be? There was no way for that expert to block it. The scarlet demon halberd directly pierced through the head of that expert, instantly killing him. Qin Wenyan's movements didn't pause as he moved towards another expert. Qing stood behind Qin Wenyan, acting as his protector. Whenever he moved towards an expert, that expert would be in the same space as Qin Wenyan. As for the others, they would be blocked by the mandate of space. Such an innate technique manifested from the mandate of space at the perfection boundary caused the hearts of those who saw it to tremble. Puchi! Another light sound rang out. Very swiftly, another expert fell under the scarlet demon halberd of Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan and his opponent were in the same space, fighting fair and square, killing his opponent. In the direction of the 9 great sects, someone spoke, causing the experts in that space to want to flee. If this continued, they would all be killed by Qin Wenyan one by one. No one is allowed to leave. Qing's voice was cold. She clenched her fist as the spatial energy around her grew even more violent. Everyone stared at the golden threads in the air, and to their shock, they discovered that the terrifying spatial energy actually transformed into a spatial prison, trapping everyone in a different space. Spatial prison, what a terrifying innate technique. The experts from the 9 great sects were all stunned by how powerful Qing was. Their experts had already entered the training grounds and were now trapped by the spatial prison. In addition to Qin Wenyan's tyrannical strength, he could kill as many people as he wanted. Not too long after, 8 experts successively fell under Qin Wenyan's scarlet demon halberd. At this moment, Qin Wenyan arrived at another spatial prison. He was facing an expert in blue robes whose eyes flickered with terrifying lightning. Qin Wenyan stepped forward and slashed out with his scarlet demon halberd. A terrifying cold light shot out from the center of his brows. A look of wariness appeared on the face of the blue-robed man as he stared at Qin Wenyan walking towards him. Just at the instant when that terrifying dreamscape rushed into his mind, the blue-robed man abruptly slammed his palms forward as an umbrella appeared in front of him. This umbrella contained a terrifying amount of lightning, and at the instant the umbrella opened, a bolt of destructive lightning shot towards Qin Wenyan. The destructive might contained within the lightning was so strong that it seemed as though it wanted to shatter Qin Wentian's body in an instant. "Be careful!" Qing'er shouted. The purple lightning directly destroyed the space around her. Qing'er's silhouette flickered as she rushed into the spatial prison. Her palms directly slashed towards the blue-robed man. The blue-robed man hurriedly lifted his hands to counterattack as terrifying lightning tore through everything. Rumble! Their attacks collided, and the lightning seemed to be disintegrated. Qing'er's palms slashed down in anger, imprinting onto the blue-robed man's body. An incomparably terrifying golden light directly tore the blue-robed man's body apart, turning him into nothingness. Only the lightning umbrella remained, falling to the ground. Qin Wenyan had already sensed danger the instant his opponent used the lightning umbrella. He instantly executed stellar transposition and retreated, yet the scarlet demon halberd didn't slow down at all. But even so, there was still a terrifying amount of lightning energy blasting into his body, causing his skin to split apart as fresh blood flowed out. Fifth-ranked divine weapon, an attack-type divine weapon that contains a fearsome lightning attribute. Qin Wentian's lips were filled with blood as his countenance turned pale. He didn't expect his opponent to actually have such a trump card. With a fifth-ranked attack-type divine weapon, his opponent could have easily used it to break apart the spatial prison and escape. Yet he didn't. Evidently, his opponent was waiting for him to arrive. Evidently, he wanted to kill him and obtain a heaven-mending pill. Idiot! In the direction of the Violet Thunder sect, Yin Ting's uncle cursed in rage. That umbrella was a treasure he had obtained, and it could only be used 5 times. Its pure offensive power was extremely terrifying, and the reason he lent it to his opponent was because he wanted to kill Qin Wenyan. Who would have thought that not only did his opponent fail to do so, he even lost his divine weapon? "My son!" An expert from the Violet Thunder sect roared in a low voice. His eyes were bloodshot as he turned his head, glaring at Yin Ting's uncle. "Who are you calling an idiot?" Yin Ting's uncle trembled as he lowered his head, not daring to say anything more. However, his heart was filled with rage. He had lost such a powerful divine weapon, yet he still failed to kill Qin Wenyan. Qing'er's hair fluttered in anger as she sped towards the other spatial prisons. When she saw one of them trying to escape, a terrifying golden light enveloped her, and she actually appeared behind him. She made a grabbing motion, sealing off the space around them. "Die!" Qing'er roared in rage. Momentarily, that person's body was torn apart. In front of Qing'er, who had a mandate of space at the perfection boundary, he had no way to resist at all. "Qing'er, I'm fine." Qin Wentian stood up when he saw the rage in Qing'er's eyes. A smile appeared on his face. Qing'er turned her head back to look at him, but she didn't say anything. This divine weapon is truly powerful. It must be someone from the 9 great sections. Qin Wentian silently mused. He picked up the umbrella, and his sharp eyes swept over the others as he continued his slaughter. Those people all had expressions of despair on their faces. Qin Wenyan alone was already tyrannical enough, but with the addition of the monstrous Qing'er, there was no way they could defeat him. The slaughter continued, and not long after, other than those spectators, those who wanted to kill Qin Wenyan were all dead. This scene deeply pierced the hearts of the 9 great sections. Not only did they fail to obtain the heaven-mending pellet, they even lost their lives. Using numbers to bully the weak? How ironic. In the direction of the Battle Sword sect, the old man beside Lin Shuai swept his gaze over the crowd as he spoke. "Is there anyone else who wishes to continue? Those at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper, feel free to challenge me." No one replied. Such a situation made everyone understand that if they wanted to continue, they would undoubtedly be courting death. Qing'er's spatial innate technique could isolate people, and in terms of individual combat prowess, within the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper, there was no one who could defeat Qing'er or Qin Wenyan. "Can I also join the Battle Sword sect?" Qing'er asked in a light voice. The experts from the Battle Sword sect stared at her. Lin Shuai's eyes flickered with a smile. "Just based on your mandate of space at the perfection boundary, this test has no meaning to you. You can easily pass it." The other 8 powers from the 9 great sects all felt uncomfortable in their hearts. They had already missed out on Qin Wenin, and now they had missed out on a second demon-level genius. This caused them to ponder in their hearts. Was it really worth it to lose two monstrous geniuses like these and avoid offending Junyu and Shangtong? These two are too arrogant. They are stained with blood. We should remove the restriction on our cultivation bases and kill them. In the quiet space, in the direction of the Violet Thunder sect, Yin Ting's uncle roared in rage. He was unwilling to accept this ending. That's right, there shouldn't be a cultivation restriction, an expert from the Yin family agreed. But at this moment, in the direction of the Battle Sword sect, an old man stood up. This old man appeared extremely calm, yet the crowd only saw his silhouette flickering as he transformed into a beam of sword light, vanishing from sight. There's no restriction on our cultivation basis? Who else still wants to kill the disciples of my Battle Sword sect? Feel free to speak up. An aged voice rang out. Just now, that beam of sword light appeared in the training field. An old man stood there, looking as ordinary as ever. It was as though he didn't exude any aura. However, that beam of sword light caused the hearts of everyone to tremble. Chapter 5:16. That old man from the Battle Sword sect stood in the air above the training ground. Although his aura wasn't gushing forth, the 9 great sects all felt a sense of pressure. This old man was definitely a supremely powerful existence. To think that the Battle Sword sect actually had such a character here. The experts from the Violet Thunder sect all stood up, their hair fluttering in anger. The lightning around them crackled and crackled, as though wanting to annihilate the heavens and earth, destroying everything. You actually dare to humiliate my Violet Thunder sect like this? An expert from the Violet Thunder sect roared in rage. Just because of a single sentence, an expert from his Violet Thunder sect was killed. Not only that, it was done in front of everyone. This was undoubtedly a ruthless slap to the face of their Violet Thunder sect. Not only did you not die after killing the disciples of my Battle Sword sect, you even dare to shamelessly suggest to lift the restriction on cultivation bases? Do you really think my Battle Sword sect is so easily bullied? If those from the Violet Thunder sect are unhappy, feel free to come up here. There's no restriction on cultivation bases. That old man coldly snorted, his voice akin to the humming of 10,000 swords, causing the entire space to tremble. It was as though there was a boundless sword chi whistling by their ears. It was extremely unbearable. Too powerful, he was definitely a supremely powerful celestial phenomenon ascendant. He arrogantly said that if the people from the Violet Thunder sect wanted to fight, they could do so. That old man's words were akin to a declaration of war against the Violet Thunder sect. Although the experts from the Violet Thunder sect were enraged, none of them dared to stand out. They were the ones who stood out, yet the old man had already slain one of their experts. At this moment, how could the other sects step out to help them? Good, very good. The leader of the experts from the Violet Thunder sect was infuriated to the extreme. However, he knew that his opponent had heaven-defying methods. If they fought, he would definitely be defeated. Given the way the Battle Sword sect did things, they might really start a massacre here. To them, this was something they couldn't accept. Even if they were humiliated, they could only swallow it down. If you don't dare to fight, shut up for this old man. That old man coldly snorted. After which, he turned his gaze onto the others, his eyes filled with a tyrannical might as he coldly stated, "Who else wants to challenge me? Those who are at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper and below can go up at any time. If there's anyone who says there's no restriction on their cultivation base, come up and fight me together." Such arrogant words, it could be said that he didn't put the 9 great sects and the royal clan of Grand Shang in his eyes. But after thinking about it carefully, he realized that the other party did indeed have the qualifications to be arrogant. The strength of this old man caused the Violet Thunder sect to feel such trepidation. Even after death, They didn't dare to accept the challenge. Most probably, no one here dared to say that they could deal with him. As for those below the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper, Qing and Qin Wenin were invincible. No matter how many there were, they would be able to kill as many as they wanted. Sweeping through everything, nobody could obstruct them. This was talent. Turning their eyes over, the crowd stared at the two figures standing side by side. Qin Wenin was fiendishly handsome and tyrannical, akin to a descendant of an ancient demon king. Qing was incomparably beautiful, yet as cold as ice. She was a peerless beauty. In the battle today, Qin Wenin fought against the other outstanding geniuses, passing the test of the 9 great sections. Although Qing only appeared for a moment, her domineering attitude left an indelible impression in the hearts of the crowd. The two of them stood together, exuding a magnificence that surpassed the generations, causing all the other geniuses to lose their splendor. After joining the Battle Sword sect, their future would surely be even more terrifying. Many mused silently. Most probably, no one would be able to obstruct them today. Don't you think it's a little inappropriate for you to be so domineering in the territory of my Grand Shang Empire? At this moment, an indifferent voice drifted over. The person who spoke was none other than the I King of Grand Shang, Shang Tong. No matter what, Xian King City was one of the 7 great royal cities of Grand Shang. Those from the Battle Sword sect simply didn't have it in their eyes at all. Are the people of Grand Shang all so lacking in upbringing? How dare you speak so rudely to your elders? The eyes of the old man from the Battle Sword sect swept over to Shang Tong as a terrifying sharpness gushed forth. Ordering so many people to bully the disciples of my sect? Do you really think that you, a prince, can use your prestige to bully my Battle Sword sect? If you dare to say another word about touching the disciples of my Battle Sword sect, I will kill you on the spot. Do you believe me? As the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying might enveloped Shang Tong. The experts beside him all stepped out, blocking in front of Shang Tong. However, the sword chi was too terrifying. It felt as though it could slay Shang Tong at any moment. The disparity between the two of them was simply too great. There was no way to make up for it. Shang Tong was protected by the experts behind him. His golden eyes flickered with a cold light. He didn't expect that there would actually be people who dared to bully him in the territory of Grand Shang. The surrounding space was once again filled with silence, incomparably heavy. Seems like the Battle Sword sect came prepared. There's actually such a powerful expert hidden among them. This trip to the Xian King City was suggested by the Battle Sword sect. Coincidentally, they met Qin Wenin and Qin Wenin, these two supreme geniuses. However, what's the original purpose of the Battle Sword sect? Many people felt puzzled in their hearts. The strength of this old man was extremely terrifying. Before this, he had been quietly sitting among the crowd of people from the Battle Sword sect, not revealing his true strength. Yet, his strength was so overwhelming that it was even stronger than those from the 9 great sections. Is there anyone who dares to step up? Does the other sects and Grand Shang have no one capable? You guys can't even bring out a single decent character, yet you are still so arrogant? Could it be that you only dare to act arrogantly when you have the advantage in numbers? The old man roared again upon seeing the silence in the air. The face of the 9 great sects and Grand Shang has all been thrown away by you guys. This trip is truly disappointing. The countenances of those from the 9 great sects alternated between shades of green and white. Their strength couldn't be compared to the old man, and none of them could deal with Qin Wenin and Qin Wenin. How could they still act arrogantly? They had completely lost their confidence. If they were weak, they could only be suppressed by others. Even if they were humiliated, they could only swallow it down. Since there's no one here, Lin Shuai, let's return. The old man spoke. Those from the Battle Sword sect all stood up as sword chi towered up into the heavens. They all stepped on their swords, preparing to soar into the skies at any moment. The old man waved his hand as a beam of sword light appeared beside Qin Wenin and Qin. He then spoke to them, "Ride on my sword." The distance between the Xian King City and the Battle Sword sect was a distance of 200,000 miles. Given Qin Wentian's speed, It would take him several days to reach there. But given the strength of that old man, it wouldn't take too long. Celestial phenomenon ascendants had inconceivably fast speed. Traversing tens of thousands of miles in a single day wasn't a problem at all. Senior, please wait a moment. Qin Wendian didn't leave immediately. He stepped out and stared in the direction of those from the Grand Shang Empire, before turning his gaze onto the 6 great powers of Xian King City. Back then, the 6 great powers ganged up on me because of the constellation fruits. Hence, I, Qin, came here today for revenge. If any of you want revenge, feel free to come to the Battle Sword sect to look for me. However, there's one more person who must die today. As the sound of his voice faded, his gaze instantly locked onto Yin Cheng from the Yin clan. Upon seeing Qin Wentian's gaze, Yin Cheng's countenance paled as he howled, "Grandpa, save me." However, a terrifying beam of light shot out from the center of Qin Wentian's brows. His will of mandates directly blasted into Yin Cheng's sea of consciousness. In an instant, Yin Cheng only felt a scene of purgatory appearing in his sea of consciousness. Corpses piled up like mountains as blood dyed the heavens and earth red. Numerous devils and devils rushed towards him, and the one in the lead was none other than Qi Yezi, whom he had forced to his death back then. This is an illusion, it's not real. Yin Cheng howled in rage, wanting to struggle free. However, he only saw the numerous devils and devils directly grabbing at him with a strength of over 1,000,000 jin. With a muffled sound, the crowd saw Yin Cheng coughing out blood 3 times in a row. His countenance was as pale as paper as he directly collapsed to the ground, killed by Qin Wenyan through the air. The spectators stared in shock at this scene. Qin Wentian's ability to kill those with a lower cultivation base was simply unfathomable. Most probably, it was the power of his eye technique, similar to Shang Tong's innate techniques. The experts from the Yin clan pointed their fingers at Qin Wenyan, their killing intent towered up into the sky. However, Qin Wenyan merely stared at them calmly, there was no joy nor sorrow in his eyes. Back then, the 6 major powers of Xian King City ganged up on him because he didn't have any background, which was why they dared to do so. Now, he borrowed the power of the Battle Sword sect to forcefully annihilate Yin Cheng. Yet the Yin clan could only feel hatred, they didn't dare to seek revenge. It was as though the tables had been flipped. One couldn't help but say that the situation had changed drastically. In just a short span of a few months, the heavens and earth had been turned upside down. Because of the pursuit in the heavenly mountain range, it led to a bloody war in Xian King City today, implicating the 9 great sects in the process. I'll wait for you all to come and take revenge. Qin Wendian stared at the experts from the Yin clan. After which, he and Qin stepped onto the sword beam. Little Rascal transformed into a white shadow and leapt into Qin Wentian's embrace, causing a look of bewilderment to appear on the faces of many. Go! The old man from the Battle Sword sect roared. A moment later, the whistling of swords filled the air as the group of experts soared through the air, transforming into beams of white light. Let's go! The crowd felt a sense of loss. The battle today was truly fascinating, yet they felt that it was too short. That young man and woman were simply too powerful, with outstanding talent. In the future, they would definitely be able to shine brightly in the Battle Sword sect. The Battle Sword sect only came here to pick up the 2 of them. What's going on exactly? There were also people who were bewildered, they couldn't understand. Shang Yu watched on as Qin Wendian killed Yin Cheng and left. An indescribable feeling filled her heart. This person was someone she couldn't be compared to. The 2 of them were people from different worlds, even if she was the princess of Xian King City. Ji Shui and Su Feng also watched as Qin Wendian left. A smile flickered in Ji Shui's eyes as she spoke in a low voice. Let's hope that in the future, we would be able to hear his legend in Grand Shang Empire. Qin Wentian's trip to the Battle Sword sect would definitely cause a storm of commotion in the royal sacred region. The royal capital of Grand Shang could be considered the border region of the royal sacred region. True experts were as common as the clouds there, and geniuses were innumerable. Geniuses like these from Xian King City could be seen everywhere. For this trip to the Battle Sword sect, The true elites of the 9 great sects didn't come out. From afar, in the air, Qin Wenyin and Qing stood on the same sword beam. Qin Wenyin stared at Qing as he smiled. Qing, when did you become so powerful? Your mandates have actually reached the perfection boundary. Qing stared at Qin Wenyin as she replied in a low voice, I've eaten the fruits you gave me. Qin Wenyan's eyes flashed. The 2 constellation fruits that contained spatial energy were actually eaten by this lass. No wonder her mandate of space had already reached the perfection boundary. She was truly a glutton. Was it delicious? Qin Wenyin had a smile that was not a smile on his face as he asked. Qing stared at Qin Wenyin. Her eyes brightened as an expression of contemplation appeared on her face. Her lips trembled as she replied, disgusting. Qin Wenyin stared at the serious expression on Qing's face. He did his best to suppress the urge to laugh out loud. This last Qing was truly adorable. Chapter 517. The royal sacred region spanned across the boundless territories, and there were countless sects and clans, as well as countless ancient countries. The royal sacred sect, the hegemon of this boundless territory, was also located in this region. In this region, other than the hegemon, there were the 9 sects, 7 clans, and twin empires. The 9 sects naturally referred to the 9 great sects of the royal sacred region. The 7 clans referred to the 7 transcendent ancient clans, their strength unfathomably terrifying. It was just that they didn't belong to the royal sacred sect directly, but the descendants of these 7 clans all felt it was an honor to join the royal sacred sect. The twin empires referred to the Grand Shang Empire and the Grand Zhou Empire. If one looked further, the 3 empires, Grand Zhou, Grand Shang, and Grand Xia, all belonged to the royal sacred region and were governed by the royal sacred sect. It was just that because the area they controlled was too vast, the royal sacred sect wasn't willing to care about places that were too far away. Not only that, half of the Grand Zhou Empire's territory was within the royal sacred region. The most important royal capital of the Grand Shang Empire was there as well. As for the already destroyed Grand Xia, the royal sacred region no longer paid much attention to it. From this, one could very well imagine how vast this region was. The number of living beings here was truly innumerable, and it was unknown how many experts there were. Not only that, other than the 9 sects, 7 clans, and twin empires, there were still many weaker sects and clans, and even ancient countries. They belonged to the second tier of powers, but they were still exceedingly powerful. If there was a day where a few peak characters appeared, they might be able to replace the 9 sects, 7 clans, and twin empires. One must know that in the history of the royal sacred region, these powers had all been replaced before. 5,000 years ago, among the 9 sects, there was no battle sword sect. It was just that the battle sword sect suddenly rose up and obtained an important position in the royal sacred sect, gradually becoming an important branch of the royal sacred sect. This was also the reason why the various sects wanted to send their disciples to the royal sacred sect. For some of the second-tier powers, their accumulations weren't any weaker compared to the 9 great sections. It was just that their strength was too weak compared to the royal sacred sect, which was why they had no way to replace them. Right now, Qin Wenyin had arrived at such a region. Along the way, he flew on his flying sword and stared at the flourishing scenery below, feeling shock in his heart. The people of the battle sword sect didn't fly too high, and they could clearly see everything below. Everywhere they passed, the places were all much more flourishing compared to the 9 continents of Grand Xia. Sometimes, they would pass by some tyrannical aristocratic clans, and the experts of those clans would soar up into the skies, exuding a terrifying aura that could easily sweep through the 9 continents of Grand Xia. Qin Wenyin also flew past an ancient country. As they passed by, the territory of the ancient country was an empire, they as kings as they as sacred clans of the lands, they as emperors they could, they as they could, as they as, and when they as ancient as and they as. As Qin Wenyan also flew past an ancient country. The territory of this ancient country was exceedingly vast, and when they passed by the royal palace of the ancient country, countless experts clad in armor soared up into the skies. That kind of aura caused one to feel suffocated, and upon seeing that they were from the battle sword sect, there were instantly nobles who came out to send them off. After the experts of the battle sword sect knew that he came from the desolate Grand Xia, they purposely did this. Evidently, they had put in a lot of effort to allow him to broaden his horizons, allowing him to understand how vast the heavens and earth were. From his conversation with Lin Shuai and the others, only then did he understand that Grand Xia was actually an abandoned land of desolation in the eyes of the experts of the royal sacred region. This caused Qin Wenyan to be filled with a myriad of emotions. Qin Wenyan also finally understood why Junyu was so arrogant when he came to Grand Xia. He was a disciple of the royal sacred sect. How could he have any regard for the desolation of Grand Xia? On the contrary, the people of Grand Xia rarely came to the royal sacred region before. Most probably, they didn't have enough understanding of Junyu's status. However, all of this only caused Qin Wenyan to be even more excited. His eyes gleamed with sharpness as he exuded an imposing aura. Qing'er, who was beside him, was as calm as ever. She didn't say anything, and even when the experts of the battle sword sect tried to talk to her, she ignored them, causing the experts of the battle sword sect to smile bitterly. But knowing her personality, they wouldn't lower themselves to her level. Finally, they arrived at their destination, the battle sword sect located in the southern regions of the royal sacred region. In Qin Wenyan's imagination, the battle sword sect should be located in a vast, desolate plain with many outstanding geniuses wanting to join it. But when he arrived, he couldn't help but to smile bitterly. The surroundings of the battle sword sect were bustling with activity. Outside the battle sword sect, there was an ancient sword erected there. This was the boundary of the battle sword sect. In front of them, a gigantic sword pierced through the heavens, as though it wanted to pierce through the clouds. In front of them, there were many ancient peaks, and numerous buildings stood there, resembling immortal palaces in the heavens. The battle sword sect spanned a few hundred miles, but it was located in the middle of a flourishing region, not in the wilderness. Outside the boundary of the battle sword sect, there were countless silhouettes walking about. Their gazes were fixed on the battle sword sect, as hints of reverence could be seen in their eyes. But, are you very disappointed? Lin Shuai stood beside Qin Wenyan as he asked with a smile. How can that be? I'm just a little surprised. I thought the battle sword sect would be located in the middle of a mountain range. Qin Wenyan laughed. I, Wu Xiu, roamed the world with a sword in my hands, living in the world of mortals. The battle sword sect isn't as transcendent as you think. We're all people of the world of mortals, cultivating our swordsmanship, roaming the world, settling our debts of gratitude and enmity, living a carefree and unrestrained life. Lin Shuai laughed. For those who are unable to face their own hearts, it's impossible for them to reach a higher realm in the path of the sword. The reason why the battle sword sect is so lax in disciplining their disciples is because they don't want to restrict them. Remember this, after joining the battle sword sect, there's no need for you to follow the rules. You only need to face your own heart and persevere. If there comes a day when you feel that the battle sword sect isn't suitable for you, you can just leave on your flying sword and the sect won't make things difficult for you. What a carefree and unrestrained battle sword sect. Qin Wenyan felt his heart trembling when he heard Lin Shuai's words. Back in Xianqing City, he had heard many rumors about the battle sword sect. Seems like the rumors were true. This sect was different from the other sections. They were truly carefree and open-minded, cultivating their swordsmanship, roaming the world, settling their debts of gratitude and enmity, living a carefree and unrestrained life. As the two of them spoke, the group of them had already entered the battle sword sect. When they got closer, they discovered that the battle sword sect was akin to an immortal palace. Mountain springs and waterfalls flowed down, and there were people chatting and laughing in the pavilions. There were even people practicing their swordsmanship in the training grounds of the ancient mountain. Upon seeing this group of people returning, many in the battle sword sect inclined their heads and glanced over only to see many disciples gathered together. The cultivation bases of the members of the battle sword sect were all at least at the heavenly dipper realm. Even if they were in their 30s or 40s, they still looked young. Hence, it wasn't strange at all. Seventh senior brother is back, and he even brought 2 young men and women with him. Are they the newly recruited disciples? Beneath a waterfall, a group of young men and women stared in the direction of Lin Shuai and the others. A young man clad in white had a look of curiosity on his face. That woman is so beautiful. Does she also want to join our battle sword sect? If that's the case, the title of the #1 beauty of our battle sword sect would definitely belong to her. The eyes of a young man beside him gleamed as he stared at Qin. A beautiful young woman beside him coldly snorted. This young woman was tall and had a curvaceous figure. Her skin was as white as snow, and her eyes were bright. She had an oval-shaped face and was extremely beautiful. She glared at the young man beside her as she cursed in a low voice, "Lecherous fellow. Lust, nature." The young man casually spoke, not minding it at all as he laughed. What a pity junior sister is so distant from senior brother. If junior sister was willing to marry senior brother would definitely not look at other women. That young woman ruthlessly glared at him. Beside her, a skinny young man with an ancient sword strapped to his back suddenly spoke. Seventh senior brother accompanied the elders to the battle sword sect for some unknown reason. Now that he has returned, he even brought 2 young men with him. Could it be that this trip was all for the sake of these 2? Our battle sword sect has never set such a precedent before. Indeed, it's strange. Senior brother is here. The young woman beside him spoke. After which, Lin Shuai and the others arrived. The old man in the lead instructed, "Lin Shuai, I will leave the arrangements to you." Lin Shuai nodded. After which, the old man led the group away. Seventh senior brother, you have returned. That young woman stepped out as she smiled at Lin Shuai. Her attitude was completely different from how she treated the young man beside her. Junior sister's heart is blooming with joy upon seeing seventh senior brother's return. How sad. The young man who was scolded as a lecherous fellow earlier sighed. After which, he turned his gaze onto Qing as he asked, "I wonder how I should address this young lady?" Coldly glanced at him and ignored him, treating him like air. This caused many in the surroundings to have smiles on their faces. The young man also had an awkward expression on his face. "You better be more obedient." Lin Shuai glared at him. After which, he introduced to the others, "This is junior brother Qin Wendian and junior sister Qing. From now on, they are also disciples of the battle sword sect. Junior sister Qing doesn't like to talk, so don't disturb her. If there's anything you want to say, just tell junior brother Qin, he will naturally inform junior sister." Qing appeared in the training grounds of Xian King City because she wanted to protect Qin Wenyan. On the way here, Lin Shuai knew that the relationship between the two of them was extraordinary, which was why he gave this instruction. "Yes, senior brother." The others all nodded their heads in agreement. Qin Wenyan had been observing silently, yet he couldn't help but feel shock in his heart. Lin Shuai was actually only his senior brother? He had initially thought that Lin Shuai's seniority would be a level higher than his. After all, other than the old man, Lin Shuai was the leader of the battle sword sect. What he didn't know was that because Lin Shuai was the personal disciple of the battle sword sect's sect leader, his status was extraordinary. "My name is Yi Lingshuang. Junior brother and junior sister can refer to me as senior sister Yi or senior sister Lingshuang." That female smiled at Qin Wenyan and Qing as she introduced herself. "Jiang Huai." The skinny man nodded to the two of them. "Lu Yun." The lecherous young man also smiled. The others introduced themselves one by one, and Qin Wenyan nodded his head in return. "Junior brother, this pet is so adorable. Can I take a look?" Yi Lingshuang stared at little rascal in Qin Wenyan's arms as a bright light flashed in her eyes. She had slain many demonic beasts before, but it was very rare for her to see such an adorable little demonic pet. Okay. Qin Wendian nodded. He loosened his grip, and little rascal leaped into Yi Lingshuang's embrace, causing a smile to appear on Yi Lingshuang's face. The little guy arched against her chest and curled up there, as if he was enjoying it very much. He said in a childish voice, "So soft." Yi Lingshuang was instantly petrified. Her beautiful eyes stared unblinkingly at little rascal in her arms. Qin Wendian's face was filled with black lines. Staring at little rascal in Yi Lingshuang's arms, he felt an impulse to strangle it to death. This bastard really knew how to talk. Cough cough. Lu Yun coughed, staring at little rascal with jealousy in his eyes. After which, he turned to Qin Wendian as a meaningful smile appeared on his face. So it turns out that junior brother is a kindred spirit. Chapter 5:18. When Qin Wendian heard Lu Yun's words, he wanted nothing more than to find a hole to hide in. He snuck a glance at Yi Lingshuang only to see that this senior apprentice sister of his was also looking at him with a smile that was not a smile. That look of disdain in her eyes made Qin Wendian want to lift his head up and sigh to the heavens. He had just joined the Battle Sword sect, and it seemed like his reputation had already been completely ruined by little rascal. Little rascal, scram back here for me. Qin Wendian glared hatefully at little rascal, only to see little rascal flipping its body over and lazily lying on top of Qin Wendian's ample bosom. Its eyes were narrowed as an expression of intoxication could be seen on its face. Junior brother has taught us well. Yi Lingshuang giggled. Qin Wendian howled in his heart. Even if he jumped into the heavenly river, he wouldn't be able to wash his name clean. Junior brother, junior sister, let me bring you all around the Battle Sword sect. Lin Shuai spoke, helping Qin Wendian out of this predicament. Qin Wendian nodded his head as the few of them soared up into the air. Yi Lingshuang and the rest followed behind them as they soared into the air. The Battle Sword sect has a span of a few hundred miles and has a total of 3,000 disciples. The ancient peaks of the Battle Sword sect are all connected to each other. The disciples will be staying in wooden houses located in the middle of the mountain peaks. You can choose any wooden house as your residence. Lin Shuai took a step in front of Qin Wendian as he pointed to a wooden house located in the middle of the mountain walls. The scenery was beautiful and the atmosphere was extremely quiet. Also, there was a certain distance between the wooden houses so that the disciples wouldn't disturb each other when cultivating. The residences are completely separated from the cultivation grounds of the Battle Sword sect. Look over there, that's the training grounds of our Battle Sword sect. Disciples can spar there, and if there's a conflict between disciples, the elders can mediate between them. If there's no way to mediate, both parties can request for a final battle. Lin Shuai pointed to a location. Over there was a majestic training ground with many disciples gathered below. Qin Wendian made a mental note in his heart. The Battle Sword sect was the sect with the least number of disciples out of the 9 great sects, and their recruitment process was extremely strict. But who would have thought that they would actually have 3,000 disciples? From this, one could see how terrifying a great sect was. As for the other 8 great sects, their disciples should be in the tens of thousands, and all of them were elites. In fact, if one thought about it carefully, this wasn't anything strange at all. The royal sacred region was incomparably vast. There were countless sects and aristocratic clans, as well as the 3 empires and many ancient countries. The population of the 9 great sects was extremely high, and other than the royal sacred sect, the number of geniuses who wished to join the 9 great sects was innumerable. Even if the Battle Sword sect chose only 1 out of 1,000, there would still be several hundred of them. After so many years of accumulation, 3,000 disciples was definitely considered a small number. That place is the Battle Sword platform. When something big happens in the sect, the drums on the Battle Sword platform would shake the heavens and all the disciples of the Battle Sword sect would immediately gather there. Lin Shuai pointed to a vast area. Qin Wendian committed this to memory and continued following Lin Shuai. Up ahead, 9 ancient mountains appeared, each of them occupying an extremely large area. This is the Cultivation Mountain. There are too many disciples in the Battle Sword sect, and it's naturally impossible for us to teach them all at the same time. According to the different specialties of the disciples, there would be 9 sword sovereigns to guide them. Each of the 9 sword sovereigns would be in charge of a mountain, and there would also be elders and attendants under the sword sovereigns. Senior brother, which mountain are you from? Qin Wenyin curiously asked. Senior brother is the personal disciple of the first mountain sword sovereign Ling Tian. Sword sovereign Ling Tian is also the sect leader of our battle sword sect. Yi Lingshuang stared at Qin Wenyin as she continued, as for the rest of us, we are also disciples of sword sovereign Ling Tian. It's just that we aren't his personal disciples. Our masters are the elders of the first mountain. Qin Wenyin nodded his head lightly. There were 3,000 disciples in the battle sword sect. It was naturally impossible for all of them to be personally taught by the 9 sword sovereigns. As the personal disciple of the sect leader, it was no wonder that Lin Shuai had such a transcendent status. Within the 9 mountains, there are library pavilions containing innate techniques, cultivation arts, and ancient records. Disciples of the various mountains are free to browse through them. If we continue forward, that would be the cultivation grounds of the supreme elders of our battle sword sect. Don't go there recklessly, Lin Shuai instructed to Qin Wenyin. Other than this, within the ancient mountains of the battle sword sect, there would be ancient ruins left behind by the ancestors of our battle sword sect. You are free to browse through them as you wish. Lin Shuai continued, also, I want to bring you to an important location. After speaking, Lin Shuai's silhouette turned as Qin Wenyin and the rest followed behind. He cast a puzzled glance at Yi Lingshuang, only to see her, Lu Yun and the rest all had solemn expressions on their faces. It was as though the place Lin Shuai was talking about had an extraordinary significance. Not long after, Lin Shuai brought him to the peak of a mountain. Over here, there were actually many disciples gathered. When they saw Lin Shuai, they all nodded their heads to him and greeted him as senior brother. Lin Shuai was the personal disciple of the sect leader, and his cultivation base had already broken through to celestial phenomenon. He wasn't any weaker compared to some of the attendants in the sect, hence he was naturally respected. Lin Shuai nodded his head lightly. Standing on the mountain peak, the crowd glanced at Qin Wenyin and Qing, behind Lin Shuai, feeling bewildered in their hearts. Were these 2 new disciples of the battle sword sect? They were actually personally brought here by senior brother Lin Shuai. Qin Wentian's aura was reserved, yet he was extraordinarily handsome. Qing was cold, yet her beauty was unparalleled. Yi Lingshuang was a rare beauty, yet even she paled in comparison to Qin Wenyin. This caused the crowd to involuntarily sigh in admiration. These 2 new disciples seemed to be extraordinary. Qin Wenyin wasn't in the mood to think too much about it. At this moment, his gaze was directed ahead. Opposite the ancient mountain, there was a thatched hut. This thatched hut seemed ordinary and extremely simple, but its surroundings seemed to be filled with a mysterious power, as though it was the only thing in this world. With this thatched hut here, all other sceneries seemed to lose their splendor. The grass hut deeply attracted Qin Wentian's gaze. The seemingly ordinary grass hut exuded such an extraordinary aura, which was truly shocking. He used his perception to spy on it, but discovered that his perception was blocked by an invisible force, unable to approach the grass hut at all. Senior brother, what's in the thatched cottage? Qin Wenyin asked curiously. Lin Shuai lightly shook his head. Nobody knows. Let alone me, even Master has never entered before. Or to put it more accurately, he can't enter at all. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. He didn't expect the battle sword sect to have such a mystical place. This place is the cultivation ground of the founder of the battle sword sect. It's rumored that the founder was a sword immortal-like character. Some people speculate that his sword is hidden within the grass hut, while others say that his sword arts are hidden within. Naturally, there are also some who say that there's nothing inside. However, the path leading to the grass hut contains the essence of the founder's cultivation. Lin Shuai's countenance was solemn. Only now did Qin Wentian notice that the height of the grass hut was the same as the mountain. Below them, there was a path leading to the grass hut. At this moment, There were several people attempting to ascend it, yet they had only reached the foot of the mountain. The distance to the grass hut was too far, and there was basically no way for them to ascend it. At this moment, Qin Wenyin heard a terrifying sword whistling sound at the top of the mountain path. After which, he saw a terrifying sword rainbow slashing through the air, exuding an extremely terrifying might. The entire area seemed to be filled with thunderous booms. Junior sister Han Yu is so powerful, she actually managed to ascend to the 9th step. As expected of the dragon and phoenix of our battle sword sect. Many people exclaimed in admiration. Yeah, junior sister Han Yu is a personal disciple of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. Her talent is the highest among the new disciples this year. Those who could join the battle sword sect were all outstanding characters. Yet these people were praising junior sister Han Yu unceasingly. Naturally, Qin Wenyin had also noticed that the sword rainbow earlier was unleashed by a maiden clad in a fiery phoenix feather robe. This maiden was naturally none other than the junior sister Han Yu they were talking about. This maiden's countenance was as cold as frost, and her figure was like fire. Her robes were the color of fire, as though they were weaved from phoenix feathers. Just a single glance at her would cause one to be mesmerized by her heroic bearing. This is junior sister Li Han Yu. She joined the Battle Sword Sovereigness not too long ago and was accepted as a personal disciple by the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. Her background is also extraordinary. She's a descendant of the Li clan of the Southern Domain and possesses the bloodline of the Blood Phoenix. Although her cultivation base is only at the peak of the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper, it's easy for her to defeat ordinary cultivators at the peak of the 6th level. She's truly a rare genius. Lin Shuai spoke in a low voice to Qin Wenyin, his eyes flashing with admiration. Evidently, he regarded Li Han Yu very highly. There were so many geniuses in the Battle Sword sect. It was already extremely difficult to join the Battle Sword sect, let alone becoming a personal disciple of the 9 Mountain Sword Sovereigns. Senior brother, who should I become a disciple of? Qin Wenyin asked with some bewilderment in his voice. The 9 Mountain Sword Sovereigns were the 9 factions of the Battle Sword sect. At this moment, he still didn't know which mountain he should join. Naturally, you should join my master, Sword Sovereigness Ling Tian. Lin Shuai smiled. The path up the grass hut is extremely rugged. Ordinary people would find it hard to even take a single step. Junior brother Qin, do you want to give it a try? What's on the path up the grass hut? Why is it so difficult? Qin Wenyin asked. You'll know after you take a look. The path up the grass hut is a supreme treasure of our battle sword sect. Its value isn't inferior to the library of the 9 Mountain Sword Sovereigns. Not only that, it's open to you unconditionally as long as you are able to ascend it. I've heard that there was once a senior in our battle sword sect who managed to ascend the grass hut and reach the peak. After that, he became the #1 genius in our battle sword sect. Lin Shuai laughed, his words causing Qin Wenyin to be even more curious. After which, he nodded his head. I'll give it a try then. Qing, do you want to go? I'm not going. Qing Er didn't seem to be too interested as she shook her head. Back then, there was an expert from her clan who passed on many cultivation arts to her. Regardless of cultivation arts or innate techniques, she didn't lack any of them. In fact, she even had many secret arts. The only reason why she joined the Battle Sword sect was because of Qin Wenyin. If not, given the strength of the Battle Sword sect, it would be impossible for her to follow Qin Wenyin in the dark. Hence, she could only follow Qin Wenyin. Wait for me here. Qin Wenyin nodded his head to Qing Er. After which, his silhouette flickered as he descended from the air. An instant later, he arrived at the bottom of the grass hut and stared at the mountain path ahead. When he inclined his head and stared at the grass hut again, he felt that it was extremely far away, as though it would be impossible for him to cross it. Qin Wenyin took a step forward. Instantly, everything changed. In front of him, there was no longer a mountain path, but an ancient path. The grass hut appeared at the end of the ancient path, and in front of Qin Wenyin, a mountain rampart appeared. On this mountain rampart, there was an incomparably exquisite diagram inscribed on it. Upon seeing the diagram on the mountain rampart, Qin Wenyan was instantly immersed in it. He couldn't help but sigh in admiration. No wonder Lin Shuai said that the value of this place wasn't any lower than the library. This ancient path itself was a treasure trove. Chapter 5:19. The diagram on the mountain rampart was right before Qin Wentian's eyes. It was extremely vivid and lifelike, with a myriad of transformations. Within it, there seemed to be a great rock soaring through the skies, as fast as lightning, shuttling through the clouds with shocking speed. At this moment, a beam of sword light cascaded down from the skies, stunning the heavens and earth. The great rock soared through the air, yet it was still slower than that sword. As the sword descended, the great rock died. This diagram is the beheading rock diagram. Qin Wentian's heart pounded. He didn't expect that just the first step would cause such a terrifying diagram to appear on the rampart. Although there was only a single sword strike, it contained a myriad of transformations. This was a great Tao of the sword, containing boundless might. If one could successfully cultivate it, they would be able to slay a great rock. Sword chi radiated from Qin Wenyan as he unceasingly slashed out with his sword. However, his speed was too slow. Although in the past, he already felt that his speed was extremely fast, in front of the mountain rampart, Qin Wenyan felt that his speed was like that of an ant. Slow, extremely slow to the extreme. Qin Wenyan had a feeling that he would never be able to slash out such a magnificent sword strike. Something's wrong. The first step on the ancient path leading to the grass hut is the mountain rampart. Most probably, there's an intent to comprehend the sword here. If not, why would Li Hanyu take a step forward after slashing out with her sword? She must have comprehended a single sword strike before she could advance. Since she could take 9 steps, how can I not be able to take a single step? Qin Wentian mused. Although Lin Shuai didn't tell him directly, he already understood that the path leading to the grass hut was the path to comprehend the sword. Also, this path was left behind by the founder of the battle sword sect. How could it be easy to comprehend the sword of the founder? How could he not be patient? This diagram is extraordinary, it's majestic and majestic. My current strength is simply insufficient in front of it. I need to create a dreamscape. Qin Wentian mused. After which, he closed his eyes and calmed himself. Activating his cultivation art, an instant later, Qin Wentian stepped into the dreamscape. In the air, the mountain and river diagram was still there. This was something he obtained long ago in the dark forest of Chu. As he grew stronger, he discovered how extraordinary this diagram was. At this moment, the diagram formed a dreamland of mountains and rivers. Qin Wenyan stood proudly in the clouds, and in front of him, a great rock soared through the sky. It flew past him like a bolt of lightning, so fast that it was impossible to see it with the naked eye. However, the Qin Wenyan in the dream world was no ordinary person. He stood above the clouds and watched as the rock soared through the sky. A beam of sword light descended from the sky and directly slashed the rock. In an instant, the rock died. I can't see through it, Qin Wenyan said calmly. He repeated this scene over and over again as he continued to comprehend this shocking sword. Gradually, Qin Wenyan saw a different transformation. This sword was like the wind. No matter how fast the rock was, it couldn't escape the wind. The wind was everywhere, and no matter how fast the rock soared, it had to ride the wind. This sword was hidden within the wind. I have never comprehended the will of wind. Can I comprehend the sword? Qin Wenyan murmured. He also wielded his sword, but it was one thing to understand, but it was impossible for him to do it. Moreover, he didn't understand the wind. It's impossible for all the disciples in the battle sword sect to be proficient in the mandate of wind. The only way to comprehend the sword is to comprehend it. Qin Wenyan closed his eyes and exited the dreamland. Staring at the mountain rampart in front of him, he stretched out his hand and actually touched it. A thought appeared in his mind, and an instant later, a startling beam of sword light shot up into the sky, akin to the howling of a cold wind, tearing apart the heavens and earth. The mountain rampart dissipated. A smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face as he stepped out. He saw the second mountain rampart and the second diagram. He saw a giant. This giant's head touched the heavens, trampling the earth. With a single stomp, it could shatter mountains. With a single step, it could sever rivers. With a single palm, it could even shatter the heavens. This scene was extremely shocking. Just as the giant was running, a sword descended from the sky. This sword was a gigantic sword, and it directly slammed into the giant's head. The speed of the sword wasn't fast, but in an instant, the giant's incomparably huge body disintegrated, turning into huge rocks and turning into a mountain range. The strength contained within this sword is far beyond millions and millions of Jin. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. He closed his eyes and once again immersed himself in the dreamland, trying to comprehend the might of the gigantic sword. If it's a spear, it would be the same. That's the power of the earth. Qin Wentian mumbled. After which, he placed his palms on the mountain rampart once more. Another beam of sword light appeared as he took another step forward. Behind him, on the mountain peak, the spectators all had looks of amazement on their faces when they saw Qin Wentian taking 2 steps forward. Junior brother is truly powerful. He actually managed to comprehend 2 sword strikes. Lin Shuai stared in the direction of Qin Wentian as he sighed in admiration. It's just 2 sword strikes. Back then, didn't senior brother also easily comprehend the first 7 sword strikes? These 7 shouldn't be too difficult. Yi Lingshuang faintly commented. Lin Shuai laughed. But my speed of comprehending the sword strikes is still inferior to junior brother Qin. How many sword strikes do you guys think junior brother Qin can comprehend today? Looking at his speed, his comprehension abilities shouldn't be weak. Maybe he can be like those disciples with high comprehension abilities, comprehending 7 sword strikes in one go. But after the 7th sword strike, it won't be so easy to comprehend any other sword strikes. Yi Lingshuang spoke. Lu Yun, who was at the side, also nodded his head. Back then, Li Hanyu comprehended 7 sword strikes in one go. After that, she used a total of 3 days to comprehend the 8th sword strike. As for the 9th sword strike, I heard that she used 7 days to comprehend it. Being able to comprehend the 9th sword strike, Li Hanyu's comprehension abilities must be extremely high. Maybe she might be able to comprehend the 14th sword strike within a year. Lin Shuai glanced at Li Hanyu's silhouette. This female's talent was extraordinary. She should be able to comprehend the 14th sword strike within a year. He comprehended the 3rd sword strike. How fast? At this moment, Lin Shuai's eyes gleamed with sharpness. Qin Wentian effortlessly comprehended the 3rd sword strike. Maybe junior brother Qin will not only comprehend 7 sword strikes today. Jiang Huai, how many sword strikes do you think he can comprehend? Yi Lingshuang asked the skinny Jiang Huai. Jiang Huai's comprehension abilities were also extremely impressive. I don't know, but he should be able to comprehend the record of 7 sword strikes. Jiang Huai faintly replied. As they were conversing, Qin Wentian had already comprehended the 4th sword strike. Momentarily, the gazes of many were attracted to Qin Wentian. How fast, he's already comprehended the 4th sword strike. The record for the 7th sword strike was 2 hours. If this continues on, he should be able to comprehend the 7th sword strike very soon. Someone had a look of amazement on his face. This young man brought by Lin Shuai seemed to be extraordinary. It's already the 5th sword strike. How can he be so fast? The crowd exclaimed in shock. Qin Wentian had already taken 5 steps, causing 5 beams of sword light to appear. This meant that he had already comprehended 5 sword strikes. Awesome! Lin Shuai's eyes gleamed with surprise. The last 2 sword strikes are more difficult. I'm afraid it won't be so easy for him to comprehend them. Someone stated. However, as the sound of that person's voice faded, Qin Wentian had already taken the 6th step. This meant that he had comprehended 6 sword strikes. How can this be? Is this luck? The person who spoke earlier had a depressed look on his face. He had just made a prediction when he was slapped in the face. This caused many to look at him in disdain. He's going to break the record. Someone spoke. I don't believe that he can comprehend this sword strike so quickly. That person spoke again. And as expected, this time around, Qin Wenyan paused for a period of time, standing there and comprehending. As expected, he can't do it anymore. That person laughed. He glanced at the people around him, only to see that the people around him all had strange expressions on their faces. After that, he turned his head back only to see a resplendent beam of light flashing past. Qin Wenyan had already taken the 7th step. At the instant he took the 7th step, Qin Wenyan's body was enveloped by a dazzling radiance. It was as though he was wearing a halo of light, causing others to admire him. In the air above his head, the whistling of swords could be heard unceasingly. He broke the record. The crowd stared at Qin Wenyan as shock filled their hearts. Who would have thought that a new disciple would be able to break the record of comprehending the first 7 sword strikes? Lin Shuai had a smile on his face. No wonder the martial ancestor wanted them to bring Qin Wenyan over. Seems like the martial ancestor could already tell that Qin Wenyan was extraordinary. Their efforts in coming to the Xian King city weren't in vain. So what if he broke the record? I'm afraid he won't be able to comprehend the 8th sword strike. Someone spoke, unconvinced. Who would have thought that a new disciple would actually break the record? Who knows? Maybe there will be a good show to watch. There were also people who were filled with admiration as they laughed. From afar, several silhouettes sped over. Evidently, they were startled by the whistling of swords and knew that someone from the sword hut had broken the record. The 8th sword strike isn't so easy to comprehend. Yi Lingshuang faintly spoke. She glanced at little rascal in her embrace, whose eyes were wide open as he stared at Qin Wenyan. She couldn't help but curse in her heart. If that lecherous fellow like Lu Yun really had such talent, then the heavens really didn't have eyes. Not only that, her senior brother Lin Shuai still regarded him so highly. If Qin Wenyan knew that he was framed by little rascal and was labeled as a lecherous fellow, he would definitely be so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. Senior sister Yi, why is he lecherous? Did he take advantage of you? Someone teased. Momentarily, Yi Lingshuang's countenance turned cold as she swept her gaze over to that person. Are you looking for a beating? I don't dare. That person laughed. However, very swiftly after, there were many rumors about Qin Wenyan, a new disciple of the battle sword sect, breaking the record of comprehending the first 7 sword strikes. Not only that, he was also a lecherous fellow who dared to disrespect Yi Lingshuang the moment he joined the battle sword sect. The pitiful Qin Wenyan didn't even know that his reputation had already been ruined. At this moment, he came before another diagram on the mountain rampart. This time around, it was still the image of a great rock soaring through the 9 heavens, and it was still a sword strike. However, this sword strike was different from the first one. As the sword light descended, Qin Wenyan could see several streams of sword light lacerating everything in their path. In an instant, the great rock was actually shattered into pieces. How is this possible? Qin Wenyan's heart trembled. How could the will of the mandate of wind reach such a level? Qin Wenyan was stunned. He once again entered the dreamscape to comprehend. That majestic aura unceasingly manifested before him, yet he discovered that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't recreate the scene in the outside world. He had no idea how that sword strike was born, hence, he was unable to recreate it. I must be able to find the reason. Qin Wenyan scrutinized the sword strike on the mountain rampart. That sword that descended along with the wind seemed to have manifested several streams of wind energy that enveloped the great rock. As the sword slashed down, the great rock was instantly shattered into pieces. It was extremely hard to tell what kind of energy was used to achieve this. Qin Wenyan's countenance changed unceasingly as he sank into contemplation. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours passed. This caused many in the crowd to laugh. It seemed like Qin Wenyan had no way to comprehend this sword strike. How can the 8th sword strike be so easily comprehended? Yi Lingshuang faintly stated. The 8th sword strike was extremely difficult. I understand. At this moment, a bolt of lightning flashed through Qin Wenyan's mind as a hint of comprehension appeared in his mind. It was naturally impossible to fuse a single mandate with a sword. But what if there was another type of mandate that could be fused? This is the power born from the fusion of wind and rain. Qin Wentian's eyes shone with the resplendent light. He stretched out his hand and placed it on the mountain rampart as a diagram appeared in his mind. Instantly, the wind and rain howled as the heavens and earth changed color. Qin Wenyan took the 8th step, and in that instant, the countenances of everyone on the mountain peak changed as their eyes gleamed with sharpness. Comprehending the 8th sword strike. Chapter 520. The 8th Sword Strike, Comprehend. On the mountain peak, countless gazes turned to that unfamiliar young man. The radiance radiating from this young man seemed to have stolen away Li Hanyu's radiance. Li Hanyu comprehending the 9th Sword Strike was already considered not bad. However, the first time this young man comprehended the 8th Sword Strike, he broke the record of the first 7 sword strikes. And now, he even comprehended the 8th sword strike in such a short period of time. How inconceivable! Yi Lingshuang's beautiful eyes flickered. Earlier, she said that the 8th sword strike wouldn't be so easy to comprehend. After which, Qin Wenyan actually comprehended it, causing her to be dumbfounded. She cursed in a low voice. Comprehending swords has nothing to do with one's cultivation base. I didn't expect this lecherous fellow to have such capabilities, to actually be able to comprehend the 8th sword strike in such a short period of time. Senior, could it be that you secretly told him the secret to comprehending swords? The path of comprehending swords requires one to comprehend it on their own. Even if I told him, it's useless if he didn't comprehend it himself. Lin Shuai explained. Junior sister, don't have any bad opinions about junior brother Qin. After which, he shook his head with a bitter smile. No matter how he looked at it, Qin Wenyan didn't seem like a lecherous fellow. Instead, he was tricked by his pet. The others were also discussing. Qin Wenyan had already comprehended the 8th sword strike. In that case, would he be able to comprehend the 9th sword strike today? After the 7th sword strike, each sword strike represented a different path. The 8th to 14th sword strikes were all exceedingly difficult to comprehend. Maybe luck played a role in this sword strike. If he can comprehend another sword strike, I'll believe that his comprehension abilities are truly extraordinary. Someone stated, causing many to agree. If he can comprehend the 9th sword strike, he would be able to catch up to junior sister Li. Right now, Qin Wenyan was only a step behind Li Hanyu. Before his eyes, another diagram appeared. This diagram was extremely similar to the one he comprehended earlier. A great rock soared through the skies, and with a single sword strike, the great rock perished. This extremely similar sword strike caused Qin Wenyan to furrow his brows. It's almost the same as the one earlier. Qin Wenyan mused. However, he understood that it was impossible for these two swords to be exactly the same. They walked different paths, yet they achieved the same effect. Raising his head, Qin Wenyan looked at the thatched cottage in front of him. The cottage was still faintly discernible, as if it was very far away. What sort of character was the founder of the battle sword sect? This is just the 9th sword strike, yet it's already so profound. The wills of his mandates fused together, creating a brand new path of cultivation. Each and every sword strike represents a different path. This ancient path is like a path leading to the heavens. At this moment, Qin Wentian's heart was filled with reverence. He guessed that the founder of the battle sword sect must have reached an unimaginable realm. This ancient path was one that no one in the entire battle sword sect could complete, not even the sword sovereigns of the 9 mountains. Once, there was an ancestor of the battle sword sect who almost completed the ancient path, becoming invincible in the battle sword sect. From this, one could see how powerful the founder was. Most probably, he was in existence like a sword immortal, able to dominate the heavens with his sword. As he thought of this, Qin Wenyan scrutinized this sword strike in detail. 2 hours later, he finally discovered that there was a slight difference between this sword strike and the previous one. That sword strike earlier, when the sword descended, the wind was akin to silk threads, carrying with it an unparalleled might, directly slashing the great rock into pieces. At that instant, Qin Wenyan thought of the scene of wind and rain intersecting with each other. The cold wind mixed with the torrential downpour, and if it was magnified infinitely, coupled with the might of the sword, it would be possible to create a scene where the great rock was slain. Hence, he was able to comprehend that sword strike earlier. However, this sword strike was slightly different. Although the sword might was the same, at the instant the sword landed, there was a surge of destructive energy that directly caused the great rock's body to explode, completely destroying it. Are all the wills of mandates in the world able to fuse together? Qin Wenyan was thinking that the founder left behind the sword comprehension grass hut because he wanted to tell the later generations about the ancient path leading to the heavens, telling them about the path of cultivation in the future. All wills of mandates were able to fuse together with everything else. And after fusing together, although the might would be even more terrifying, it would be extremely hard to find the shadow of the previous mandates. What is a constellation? Is it formed from the fusion of wills of mandates? Qin Wenyan mused. If it was a celestial phenomenon ascendant trying to comprehend this sword strike, it would definitely be easier because their understanding of the martial Tao would be deeper. Qin Wenyan placed his hand on the mountain rampart. Instantly, a beam of sword light shot up to the skies, causing the mountain rampart to dissipate. Qin Wenyan mumbled, "This sword strike contains the essence of wind and thunder within it." As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wenyan stepped out. The ninth sword strike, comprehended. Qin Wenyan was thinking that the fusion of wind and thunder would form a terrifying energy. It was just that the sword had become a medium to unleash their might. Because back then, the founder was a sword immortal, he used the sword as a medium. My current halberd arts, when I strike out with my halberd, wouldn't that be the same as the pulsation of energy? Faintly, there's also a trace of the will of the mandate of great earth within, granting me an even more terrifying destructive might. This path of comprehending swords is the path I will walk on in the future. Qin Wenyan sighed. The sword comprehension grass hut left behind by the founder didn't have any cultivation arts nor innate techniques. Yet it was a path leading to the great Tao. If you cultivate the sword, using the sword as a medium, that would be the path of a sword immortal. The founder of the battle sword sect could be said to have put in a lot of effort. This sword comprehension grass hut was a supreme treasure, allowing the disciples to comprehend it themselves instead of being taught by others. This way, the disciples would be able to comprehend it even more deeply. Qin Wenyan had already completed the ninth step. Beside him, there was another silhouette. This silhouette was an absolute beauty clad in robes made of phoenix feathers, exuding a heroic aura, causing people to want to stare up at her. This person was none other than Li Hanyu. Li Hanyu turned her gaze over, glancing at Qin Wenyan beside her as a bright light flashed in her eyes. There was actually someone who had comprehended the ninth sword strike just like her. Not only that, this person was also very young. She had just joined the sect not long ago, and there were many disciples in the battle sword sect that she didn't recognize. In addition, she had no interest in knowing them. Hence, she didn't know that Qin Wenyan had just joined the sect. She merely asked, "Have you comprehended the ninth sword strike before?" Her voice was gentle yet filled with sharpness, giving off a sense of dominance. At this moment, Qin Wenyan also glanced at Li Hanyu. On the way here, he had also met a few people, but he didn't interact with them. This Li Hanyu exuded a domineering aura and an outstanding countenance. Even he couldn't help but to silently praise her. If it wasn't for Qingqing and Qin being by his side, he would most probably be in awe of her beauty as well. Upon seeing Qin Wenyan sizing her up, Li Hanyu coldly snorted, as hints of disdain could be seen in her eyes. These young men were all like this, they all had the same expression whenever they saw her. "I haven't," Qin Wenyan casually replied. After which, he turned his gaze away, as calm as ever. His words caused a cold smile to appear in Li Hanyu's eyes. This person was truly impressive. He managed to instantly change his expression back to normal when he sensed her dissatisfaction, concealing it extremely well. However, these young men had used all sorts of methods to get close to her. How could they hide such insignificant tricks from her? The difficulty of this sword strike isn't something you can comprehend. Li Hanyu faintly spoke, exuding an air of arrogance. Qin Wendian frowned, but soon after, his brows relaxed. He ignored her and continued to stare at the diagram on the mountain rampart. A great rock soaring through the skies, breaking it with a single sword strike. This diagram was actually the exact same as the first sword strike. There were no flaws at all. In fact, compared to the 8th sword strike, this sword strike was even more similar to the first sword strike, causing him to feel as though he had returned to the time when he comprehended the first sword strike. Breaking it with a single sword strike, like the wind. But how could it be exactly the same? This time around, Qin Wenyan paused for 4 hours and was still unable to comprehend the 9th sword strike. This caused the spectators on the mountain peak to silently sigh. As expected, the difficulty of comprehending the 10th sword strike was even greater. Qin Wenyan was able to comprehend the 9th sword strike. This had already caused many to be filled with admiration. His comprehension abilities must be extremely high. But for the 10th sword strike, even Li Hanyu couldn't comprehend it. Most probably, it would be extremely difficult for him to do so as well. Qin Wenyan tried a few times, but all his attempts ended in failure. If he didn't comprehend it, his thoughts would fail and he wouldn't be able to comprehend the 10th sword strike. In the blink of an eye, the sky turned dark and bright again. A day had already passed, yet Qin Wenyan and Li Hanyu were still standing there, unmoving. Qin Wenyan carefully thought back to the first 9 sword strikes he comprehended, and even peeked at the 10th sword strike in his dreamscape. He saw it clearly over and over again. Finally, at this moment, a hint of a smile appeared in Qin Wenyan's eyes as he spoke in a low voice. "I understand now." Li Hanyu's gaze flickered as she stared at Qin Wenyan. She coldly laughed, boasting shamelessly. The difficulty of this sword strike was something she had a deep understanding of. It was simply too difficult to comprehend. Qin Wenyan glanced at her as he smiled, causing people to feel as though they were bathing in the spring breeze. After which, he placed his palms on the mountain wall and communicated with his thoughts. In an instant, a resplendent light flashed as a sword strike pierced through the heavens. The 10th sword strike was comprehended. Qin Wenyan took a step forward, vanishing from Li Hanyu's sight. How is this possible? Li Hanyu had a look of astonishment on her face. She hadn't even comprehended the 10th sword strike, yet someone had already comprehended it before her. Thinking back to the smile on Qin Wenyan's face when he left, Li Hanyu mused, could it be that this young man is extremely scheming? He had clearly comprehended the 10th sword strike before, but now he's intentionally doing this to attract my attention, wanting me to look at him in a different light? Li Hanyu didn't think too much about it. She continued staring at the mountain wall. No matter what, Qin Wenyan had succeeded in comprehending the 10th sword strike. How could she allow herself to be trapped here forever? The spectators on the mountain peak couldn't help but to exclaim in admiration when they saw Qin Wenyan comprehending the 10th sword strike. Right now, there was no longer anyone who doubted Qin Wenyan's comprehension abilities. He arrived after Li Hanyu, yet he was the first to comprehend the 10th sword strike. Qin Wenyan silently sighed in his heart. The 10th sword strike was indeed extremely difficult to comprehend. It was exactly the same as the 8th sword strike, both containing the mandate of wind and rain. It was simply unimaginable. Every type of mandate has different transformations. For wind, the first mandate is the speed of wind, while the second mandate is the lacerating wind. After a mandate reaches the perfection boundary, there would be many transformations, allowing it to fuse with other mandates, resulting in different transformations. Qin Wenyan couldn't help but sigh in his heart. If two people cultivated the same mandates and fused them together, there was a possibility that their paths would be different. Just like the 8th and 10th sword strikes. The path ahead is still very long. Qin Wenyan sighed deeply. Right now, he hadn't even comprehended a single second-level mandate to the perfection boundary, let alone fusing them together. Not only that, there was a possibility that his future path would require him to fuse multiple mandates together. Even he had no way to predict where he would go in the future. This 10th sword strike caused Qin Wendian to have some sort of comprehension. Next, within 3 days, he consecutively comprehended 4 sword strikes, causing a terrifying storm of swords to arise on the mountain path of the grass hut. Qin Wendian broke another record, causing the entire gorge to be filled with towering sword might. The spectators stared at the young man who was bathed in the radiance of the sword, incomparably resplendent. In fact, it was as though there were countless pairs of eyes in the skies watching everything that happened below. Qin Wendian, in 5 days, comprehended 14 sword strikes. Chapter 521. 14 Sword Strikes. Many people on the mountain peak were stunned. Who was this young man exactly? He actually managed to comprehend 14 sword strikes in a short span of 5 days, and his cultivation base wasn't that strong. Yi Lingshuang was completely speechless now. Staring at the silhouette of Qin Wendian, her lips twitched as she glared at Little Rascal in her arms. Little Rascal's eyes were wide open as it stared ahead. How awesome! Awesome, you little lecher. Yi Lingshuang smacked Little Rascal on its head, causing Little Rascal to glare at her in dissatisfaction. What are you looking at? Do you think you can rebel against me? Yi Lingshuang spoke in disdain. Little Rascal glared at Yi Lingshuang with a baleful look on its face, causing a look of satisfaction to appear on Yi Lingshuang's face. Little Rascal, do you think you can rebel against me? But in the next instant, her expression completely vanished as her face turned red. She stared fixedly at Little Rascal in her arms, only to see Little Rascal glaring at her angrily as its little claws actually reached out to grab her. "Do!" Yi Lingshuang screamed in agony. The gazes of the spectators all turned to her. Yi Lingshuang's reaction was also extremely fast. She immediately hugged Little Rascal tightly, not allowing others to see this embarrassing scene. "Junior sister, what's wrong?" Lu Yun curiously stared at Yi Lingshuang as he asked. "Nothing." Yi Lingshuang's face was slightly red, causing her beauty to be even more alluring. She shook her head unceasingly, but in her heart, she hated Qin Wendian to the core. Qin Wendian was actually a lecher who was so adorable, simply bewitching the hearts of others. Lu Yun was somewhat bewildered. He stared at Yi Lingshuang's chest only to see Little Rascal doing his best to squeeze out. An innocent look could be seen in its eyes. "What are you looking at?" Yi Lingshuang angrily roared, causing Lu Yun to shiver. He hurriedly shifted his gaze away, pretending that nothing had happened. He then spoke in a low voice. "Junior brother Qin is truly awesome. He actually managed to comprehend 14 sword strikes." Upon hearing Lu Yun's nonsense, Yi Lingshuang gritted her teeth. Seems like the two of them were birds of the same feather. Junior brother Qin is indeed awesome. However, I'm afraid he has no way to comprehend the 15th sword strike. In our battle sword sect, there hasn't been anyone who could comprehend it before. Lin Shuai spoke. Only then did Yi Lingshuang stop speaking. She turned her gaze to Qin Wendian. At this moment, Qin Wendian arrived before another mountain rampart. There was a diagram on it as well. Violent ancient demons were howling madly, sweeping through the heavens and earth, wanting to devour everything, annihilating all lives. These ancient demons had evil dragons and evil phoenixes, causing the lives of the living to be plunged into misery and suffering. However, at this moment, a sword slashed out, landing right in the center of the mountain rampart. In an instant, with the sword as the center, everything was annihilated. Qin Wendian's heart pounded violently. The might of this sword strike was simply too terrifying. As the sword descended, everything was destroyed. This time around, he couldn't see any will of mandates contained within. He could only feel the destructive might of the sword strike. Is this the sublimation of the fusion of the wills of mandates? Qin Wendian murmured, sighing in his heart. He had no idea what this sword strike was. He couldn't see through it at all. For the previous 14 sword strikes, he could sense the existence of the will of mandates. But for this sword strike, he couldn't sense it at all. Maybe this is the true perfect fusion of the wills of mandates, giving birth to a brand new type of power, a truly terrifying power. Qin Wendian murmured. But even so, his eyes flickered with determination. He wanted to comprehend this sword strike and see through the profoundness within. Closing his eyes, he forgot everything. In his dreamscape, there was only this sword strike. For the sake of comprehending this sword strike, Qin Wenyan didn't rest for 7 days. But after 7 days, he could only bitterly smile and shake his head, knowing that he was powerless. Qin Wenyan's personality was stubborn. No matter what he did, he would always be like this. Back then, he dared to enter the Pill Emperor Hall alone. This was a testament to his character. However, it wasn't that he didn't know his limits. He couldn't see through the 15th sword strike at all. It was impossible for him to comprehend it. His cultivation base was still insufficient, at least for now. Since this was the case, he could only give up. Turning around, Qin Wenyan calmly walked back. He had no idea that he had broken 2 records. His countenance was extremely calm. Although his cultivation base didn't increase, he could faintly see the path ahead of him. Li Hanyu was still trying to comprehend the 9th sword strike. At this moment, a hint of comprehension flashed in her eyes as a smile appeared on her face. This sword strike was truly marvelous, but in the end, it was still comprehended by her. However, at this moment, a silhouette appeared beside her. Li Hanyu stared at the returning Qin Wenyan as she coldly laughed. "Are you unable to comprehend any more sword strikes?" Qin Wenyan lightly nodded his head. He didn't say anything. Li Hanyu's countenance was filled with an innate arrogance. Most probably her status was extraordinary, but this had nothing to do with him. Li Hanyu placed her palms on the illusory mountain rampart in front of her as a complacent expression appeared on her face. She stepped out, comprehending the 10th sword strike. Qin Wenyan lightly shook his head as he left the grass hut. After which, he stared in the air, only to see that there were many silhouettes staring at him, causing Qin Wenyan to feel bewildered. It seemed like there were many more people here compared to when he first entered the grass hut. Not only that, their gazes were all on him. His silhouette flickered as Qin Wenyan soared through the air, arriving beside Lin Shuai as he asked, "Senior brother, what's wrong? You consecutively broke records, yet you're asking me what's wrong?" Lin Shuai laughed. Qin Wenyan froze for a moment before a bitter smile appeared on his face. Seems like his comprehension speed was too fast, causing such a commotion. "I'll return this little lecture to you." Yi Lingshuang tossed little rascal over to Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan stared at her in bewilderment, only to see Yi Lingshuang glaring fiercely at him. "You have an innocent look in your eyes. To be able to nurture such a little lecher, I'm sure you're not a good person." Qin Wenyan's face was filled with black lines as he stared at little rascal. What did this fellow do to attract such a strong resentment from Yi Lingshuang? "Ha, junior brother Qin, junior sister Lingshuang's words are always straightforward. Don't mind her, let's interact more in the future. I heard that you just arrived in the southern domain, so I'm afraid you don't know much about this place yet. If there's an opportunity, senior brother here will bring you around." Lu Yun shot a knowing look at Qin Wenyan as he smiled. The fairies of the Neon Moon Inn and Lakeside Lodge are all extremely charming and talented. Junior brother, if there's an opportunity, you must definitely go and take a look. Yi Lingshuang glared at Lu Yun, while Qin Wenyan had an awkward smile on his face. However, a voice drifted over from the air. "You bastard, you're here to lead your junior brother astray again." As the sound of the voice faded, an old man appeared in the air. This man had a smile on his face, exuding an extremely amiable aura. He stared at Qin Wenyan and laughed. "Little fellow, I'm Lu Yun's master. Are you interested in becoming my disciple? How can a disciple taught by you have any future prospects? Little fellow, follow me." A black-robed silhouette appeared, standing in the air. This person exuded an imposing aura even without being angry, exuding a powerful aura. The experts on this mountain are as common as the clouds. Why is there a need to snatch people away? Just follow me. Another expert appeared, causing many to be stunned. After which, another 5 to 6 people appeared. All of them were elder-level characters of the Battle Sword sect. All of them wanted to become Qin Wenyan's master, causing many to be filled with envy. Such treatment was extremely rare. Han Yu is this seat's disciple and has already comprehended 10 sword strikes. You were able to comprehend 14 within 5 days. From this, one can see that your comprehension abilities are extremely high. Even if you are lacking in other areas, this seat will still help you catch up to others. If your performance is outstanding, this seat will personally guide you. From afar, an ethereal voice drifted over, causing everyone to be startled. Those elder-level characters all had bitter smiles on their faces. The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness actually spoke. Most probably, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was paying attention to Li Hanyu and discovered that Qin Wenyan had comprehended the sword strikes. The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was a female, yet the arrogance in her voice was shocking. Although Qin Wenyan hadn't seen her in person, he knew that the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was an extraordinary character. Just a single voice was enough to cause the entire mountain to fall silent. Li Hanyu's silhouette flickered as she stepped out from the grass hut. Her countenance changed. This was the voice of her master. Her master was actually inviting someone to join her sect? Turning her gaze over, a strange light flickered in her eyes when she saw Qin Wenyan. Back then, she had taken the initiative to join the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, and because of her outstanding performance, she was accepted as a personal disciple. Junior brother, it's the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. Lu Yun's expression turned solemn as he reminded. From the seriousness in his voice, one could tell that the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was extremely powerful. Qin Wenyan glanced in the direction of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness as he replied, "Many thanks for Senior's kindness, but Junior has yet to make up his mind." As the sound of his voice faded, the crowd fell into silence. Never would they have imagined that Qin Wenyan would directly reject her. All of them stared at him in bewilderment. As expected of someone who joined the Battle Sword sect. He had character to actually reject the invitation of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. Li Hanyu's eyes flashed with coldness, feeling indignant in her heart. She had gone through untold hardships to become the personal disciple of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, and now, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness personally invited her, yet she was actually rejected. Rejected, a towering might enveloped the heavens and earth. Evidently, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness also didn't expect that Qin Wenyan would reject her. Very good. A voice rang out, causing the entire space to tremble. It's good to have character, but you have to weigh your own weight and conduct yourself well. As the sound of that voice faded, the might of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness vanished. What sort of character was the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness? It was already extremely rare for her to take the initiative to invite Qin Wenyan. But given her status, she naturally wouldn't go so far as to make things difficult for Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan's countenance was exceedingly calm. Just from the tone of her voice, he could tell that the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was extremely domineering. Naturally, she had the qualifications to do so. After all, she was an elite adept of a generation, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. However, the domineering tone of her voice made Qin Wenyan extremely unhappy. Since he didn't like it, he would reject it. There was nothing strange about this. This was just like what Lin Shuai had said, when doing things, follow your heart. Yiling Shuang also had a new level of respect for Qin Wenyan. Not everyone would have such courage and daring to reject the invitation of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. Lin Shuai had a smile on his face, as a hint of admiration could be seen on his face. His martial ancestor didn't personally act against Qin Wenyan, choosing to borrow the strength of the Battle Sword sect instead. Could it be that Qin Wenyan had also rejected him before? However, this thought only flashed past his mind for an instant. He didn't dare to think too much about it. Chapter 522. After Qin Wenyan rejected the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, he naturally understood how high the prestige of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was. Shaking his head, he turned to Lin Shuai. "Senior brother, let me find a place to stay first." Qin Wenyan spoke. Sure. You and junior sister Qin, then choose a place to stay first. After that, you can follow me to the first mountain." Lin Shuai had a smile on his face. Since he had already brought Qin Wendian here, he should greet his master first. After all, Qin Wendian was someone his master wanted. Sure. Qin Wendian had no objections. The few of them then soared into the air. Li Hanyu stepped out and landed on the mountain peak. Instantly, several extraordinary young men appeared beside her. For a moment, Li Hanyu was like the moon surrounded by stars. How many swords did this person comprehend? Li Hanyu asked. Junior sister, this person just joined the sect and he managed to comprehend 14 swords within 5 days. A person spoke. Momentarily, Li Hanyu's expression froze as the pride in her heart suffered a heavy blow. Right now, even she had only comprehended 10 swords. Junior sister, there's no need to worry. Comprehending swords is related to one's luck and comprehension ability. It doesn't represent one's talent. That person consoled. Li Hanyu nodded her head lightly. Don't worry, I, Li Hanyu, am not someone who would belittle myself. But since this person was able to comprehend 14 swords, he can already be considered extraordinary. I wonder how high his combat prowess and talent are exactly. Qin Wenyin and Qing first found a cultivation paradise on the first mountain below Sword Sovereign Ling Tian. The distance between the two cultivation paradises wasn't too far. It was quiet and beautiful. After that, they came before an ancient mountain peak. There was a winding ancient path leading to the top of the mountain, resembling a stairway to the heavens. Beside the path, there was a waterfall, splashing water everywhere. This place truly resembled a paradise in the mortal world. Qing and Little Rascal didn't come with them. Qin Wendian followed Lin Shuai and the others here. Inclining his head, he stared at the heavenly stairway of the ancient mountain. Qin Wendian ascended the stairway step by step. Lin Shuai and the others all had expressions of respect on their faces. At the edge of the waterfall, there were many guards with ancient swords on their backs. When they saw Lin Shuai and the others, they would nod their heads slightly. An instant later, only Lin Shuai could continue ascending. Yi Lingshuang and the others remained at the waist of the stairway. This was the place where the Sword Sovereign taught his disciples. Without their orders, no one was allowed to ascend. However, Lin Shuai actually brought Qin Wenyin up, causing strange expressions to appear on the faces of Yi Lingshuang and the others. Senior brother Lin Shuai actually directly brought Qin Wenyin to meet with the sect leader. What was the background of this Qin Wenyin? Junior brother is back. When Qin Wenyin and Lin Shuai arrived at the entrance of the heavenly stairway, they saw a maiden clad in white walking out. This maiden had a neat and tidy appearance, and although she couldn't be considered very beautiful, her facial features were delicate and dignified, giving off a faint sense of majesty. This is my 6th senior sister, Song Yu. Lin Shuai introduced. Senior sister. Qin Wenyin called out. Most probably, this maiden was also a disciple under the Sword Sovereign. Such a young celestial phenomenon ascendant would definitely be a character at the peak of Grand Xia. The world outside was truly powerful. Junior brother Wen, Master is already waiting for you. The white-robed maiden smiled at Qin Wenyin. Her smile caused people to feel extremely comfortable, as though it was made by nature itself. Qin Wenyin felt somewhat bewildered. The sect leader of the Battle Sword sect was personally waiting for him? With bewilderment in his heart, he followed the white-robed maiden into the great hall. There were several disciples of the Battle Sword sect here, and as for the front, there was a person casually standing there, akin to a supreme sword. Although he didn't exude any aura, he gave off a terrifying pressure to Qin Wenyin, causing him to feel as though it was extremely difficult to take a single step forward. Junior pays my respects to the sect leader. Qin Wenyin could guess that this person was none other than the sect leader of the Battle Sword sect, Sword Sovereign Ling Tian. Michem, I've already heard about you from them. Release your martial soul and will of mandates for me to see. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian smiled as he stared at Qin Wenyin. Although he didn't exude any aura, Qin Wenyin was still able to calmly face the pressure emanating from him. This could already be considered rare. At the instant the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wenyin felt all the pressure on him vanishing. It was as though the person standing in front of him was an extremely ordinary mortal, able to retract and retract as I please. Qin Wenyan knew that Sword Sovereign Ling Tian's cultivation had already reached another level. Now that he was in a place like the Battle Sword sect, it was no longer something Grand Xia could compare to. He didn't have too many misgivings and released his astral souls and will of mandates at the same time. The resplendent astral souls illuminated the entire Great Hall. The flickering astral souls were so blinding that they could pierce the eyes of those who looked at them. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian's eyes abruptly erupted with the resplendent light. Even with his state of heart, he actually couldn't control his aura at this instant, causing the entire Great Hall to be filled with a stifling pressure, albeit only for an instant. Enough! The light in Sword Sovereign Ling Tian's eyes gradually retracted, yet his heart trembled. As the sect leader of the Battle Sword sect, how many geniuses had he seen before? He had even met some heaven-defying geniuses who intentionally delayed their cultivation to increase their perception, allowing them to condense an astral soul from the fifth heavenly layer when they condensed their second astral soul. However, this was the first time he met someone who condensed an astral soul from the fifth heavenly layer as their first astral soul. Not only that, he heard that Qin Wenyan came from the desolate land of Grand Xia. This was simply unimaginable. Lin Shuai, Song Yu and the rest were all stunned as their hearts pounded. How strong was the perception of this junior brother of theirs? Force, dream, demon, sword. The attacking power of your mandates should be extremely strong. If you use this combination well, your attacks would definitely be at the peak. At that instant, Sword Sovereign Ling Tian had already sensed Qin Wenyan's mandates. Force, demon, and sword, all of them had the attribute of attack. Dream, on the other hand, had the attribute of bewilderment. Qin Wenyan nodded his head lightly, but he didn't reply. Force, demon, and sword can allow your attacks to unceasingly multiply, allowing you to walk towards the limit. Firstly, you have to reach the perfection boundary of your mandates. Secondly, you can continue to increase the strength of your fleshly body. The strength of your fleshly body is the foundation. Once your foundation is raised, when you use your mandates to multiply your attacks, the effects would be even more obvious. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian explained. Qin Wenyan naturally understood this logic. If his physical strength grew stronger, his mandate of force and mandate of demon would be able to multiply his attacks unceasingly, and the effects would be even more terrifying. However, in the past, when his cultivation base was raised, his fleshly body would also be strengthened. The fiend transformation art had also strengthened his physique, but it was already extremely difficult to raise his foundation. In addition, you've already been to the grass hut. You should know that even if it's just a simple fusion of mandates, there would still be unfathomable effects. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian spoke to Qin Wenyan. Junior has already tried it before. When I infused different mandates into my halberd arts, the might of my attacks would indeed be much stronger. Although this fusion is only at the simplest level. Qin Wenyan replied. From the 15th sword strike onwards, only then would one truly enter a deeper level of fusion. And right now, he had only comprehended the 1st to the 7th sword strike. The sword was merely a vessel. No wonder you can comprehend the 14th sword strike. However, don't stray into the wrong path. The reason why everything in the grass hut is based on the sword is because the founder was a sword immortal. Not only that, the sword can easily fuse the mandates of wind, rain, thunder, and lightning into it. However, different mandates can be used as a vessel. For example, your heavenly hammer astral soul, mandate of force, and mandate of great earth are much easier to fuse. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian's words were extremely casual, causing Qin Wenyan to unknowingly feel a sense of closeness. Many thanks for Senior's guidance. Qin Wenyan understood that Sword Sovereign Ling Tian was worried that Qin Wenyan would stray into the wrong path of the sword. You have to rely on yourself to walk your own path. Predecessors can only give you some pointers. Ultimately, how far you can walk on your own path will depend on your own talent, hard work, and luck. There's no need for you to take me as your master, but if you have any questions, you can look for me. First, follow Lin Shuai to the Gravity Mountain to cultivate. As for your little girlfriend, I will introduce her to a good teacher. If she is unwilling, I won't force her. Okay. Qin Wendian felt joy in his heart. He didn't expect Sword Sovereign Ling Tian to treat him so generously. He felt extremely grateful in his heart. As for Sword Sovereign Ling Tian's misunderstanding of Qing as his girlfriend, he didn't bother to explain. Junior brother, let's go. Lin Shuai smiled. Qin Wenyan bowed to Sword Sovereign Ling Tian before he left with Lin Shuai. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian stared at the departing back of Qin Wenyan as a smile appeared on his face. He silently mused that his master's judgment was indeed extremely sharp. He would naturally do his best to send this young man into the Battle Sword sect. Not only that, he had to do so in a dazzling manner. If not, it would be hard for him to gain recognition. This was also the reason why he didn't allow Qin Wendian to take him as his master. Junior brother Qin, you are truly astonishing. After exiting the Great Hall, Lin Shuai spoke. The combination of Qin Wendian's astral souls was simply too shocking. Qin Wendian smiled, but he didn't reply. Yi Lingshuang then asked, Senior, what's wrong? Nothing much. Lin Shuai smiled and shook his head. Master wants me to bring junior brother Qin to the Gravity Mountain. Ah! Yi Lingshuang screamed, while Lu Yun rolled his eyes. Both of them tactfully didn't say anything, causing Qin Wendian to be extremely curious about this place. The Gravity Mountain was located in a ravine within a mountain range. At the sides of the ravine, there were several ink-colored boulders that gave off a heavy feeling. There were also ancient trees that were incomparably thick and sturdy, so thick that even 10 people wouldn't be able to wrap their arms around them. This is the Gravity Mountain? Qin Wendian stared at the ravine ahead as he asked. Yes. Junior brother, the boulders below weigh over 10,000 jin. You have to move them all to the other side of the ravine before moving them back. As for those ancient trees, you have to use an axe and chop down 100 of them before you can move them out. Lin Shuai explained. How difficult can that be? Qin Wendian laughed. Yi Lingshuang, who was behind him, had a strange expression on her face. In that case, you can leave now. Lin Shuai smiled. Qin Wendian nodded. Stepping out, he flew towards the ravine. However, when he arrived in the airspace above the ravine, Qin Wendian's countenance abruptly changed. A terrifying pressure bore down on him, causing his body to plummet downwards. How heavy! Qin Wendian's countenance drastically changed. With a thunderous boom, his body directly slammed into the ground. Even his legs found it hard to stand straight, and he felt as though his entire body was falling apart. His entire body felt extremely uncomfortable, and his internal organs felt as though they were collapsing. Junior brother Qin, cultivate well. Lin Shuai smiled. After speaking, he turned and departed. Yi Lingshuang had a complacent expression on her face, while Ling Yun looked at Qin Wendian with sympathy. Enjoy yourself, and don't forget to move the boulders and chop down the trees. How can it be so terrifying? Qin Wendian straightened his back. He only felt an extremely powerful force acting on his entire body. Even the astral energy in his body couldn't circulate smoothly. He suddenly thought of something. When a type of energy reached its limit, it would undergo a qualitative change. This gravity domain had reached its limit. Boom! With every step he took, the earth rumbled. Qin Wendian glanced at the gigantic boulders, before glancing at the ancient trees. He felt an impulse to cry. Chapter 523. A month later, in the canyon above the Gravity Mountain, Lu Yun sat there drinking wine. Occasionally, he would glance down and see a young man clad in thin robes sprinting with all his might. This fellow's adaptability is truly strong. Junior sister Lingshuang, do you want a sip? Lu Yun stretched his wine gourd towards Yi Lingshuang, only to see Yi Lingshuang glaring at him. It's fine if you don't want to drink. Why must you be so fierce? No matter what, you are still a princess. Lu Yun kept his wine gourd, only to see Yi Lingshuang's countenance turning heavy as sadness flickered in her eyes. Lu Yun. Jiang Huai, who was standing behind, coldly spoke. Lu Yun continued drinking as he faintly replied, "Junior sister, calm down a little. I didn't say anything wrong." "I know." Yi Lingshuang softly replied, her words causing Lu Yun's countenance to falter. After which, he joked, "Why don't junior sister marry me? I will definitely take good care of you." Yi Lingshuang cursed. This bastard's skin was truly thick. Sigh, seems like I still have to go to the lakeside lodge to look for Fairy Z. I'll come back next month to visit him. Lu Yun turned and walked away in a carefree manner. Yi Lingshuang and Jiang Huai didn't leave. Yi Lingshuang stared at the sprinting Qin Wenin as she silently mused, what a strong adaptability to be able to run at such a speed. When Qin Wenin first stepped into the Gravity Mountain Canyon, even walking was difficult. The gravity here was simply too terrifying. Only after an entire month did he slowly get used to it. Now, he could rely on his own will and strength to run, unceasingly surpassing his own limits. At this moment, Qin Wenin walked to the side of a huge black boulder as he mumbled in a low voice, "I wonder how heavy this boulder is." Qin Wenin circulated the astral energy in his body as he infused his will into his arms. With a sudden burst of strength, rumbling sounds rang out as Qin Wenin lifted up a gigantic boulder. However, an instant later, a terrifying rumbling sound echoed out as the earth cracked apart. The gigantic boulder landed on the ground as Qin Wenin collapsed onto the ground, panting for breath. This boulder is only 5,000 jin, but that's in other places. The gravity here is 1,000 times stronger. Qin Wenin lamented in his heart. He couldn't even lift a single stone. Helplessly, he walked towards the direction of the forest, picked up the axe beside him, and chopped at the ancient tree. However, he discovered that the ancient tree only had a layer of skin broken. He couldn't help but lament in his heart. Although his strength was now very limited, this ancient tree was a bit too sturdy. Turning his head back, he glanced at the row of gigantic boulders. There seemed to be some smaller boulders as well. Walking over, he carried the smaller boulder in his arms and started to walk forward with great difficulty. Every step he took left a deep footprint on the ground, as though he had sunk into the ground. So heavy! Qin Wenin felt extremely depressed, but he could only grit his teeth and persevere. After walking over 10 steps, his entire body was already drenched in sweat, but he still gritted his teeth. This tempering exercise in the mountain of gravity allowed him to find the feeling he had when he first stepped on the path of cultivation. The most primitive feeling, constantly breaking through his limits, squeezing out all the power of his body, causing it to grow stronger. During this month, he gradually got used to the terrifying gravity. This in itself was already a huge improvement. Qin Wenin silently tempered himself in the mountain of gravity. Occasionally, he would see others entering the mountain of gravity to temper themselves. 3 months later, he was finally able to lift a boulder, and at the same time, he wielded his axe, chopping down ancient trees. Every month, Lu Yun and Yi Lingshuang would come to visit him. Today, Qin Wenin was chopping trees again. Right now, every chop of his axe was extremely effortless, as though it was a habit. He tried to infuse his will of mandates into the axe, and every chop he chopped down would have a slight improvement. As time passed, this improvement would be magnified, allowing him to chop deeper into the tree. This fellow's improvement is so fast. Lu Yun and the others came again. They sat on the roof of the mountain of gravity and watched as Qin Wenin chopped down with his axe. Deep cracks actually appeared on the ancient trees, and after tens of chops, an ancient tree collapsed. This time around, Lu Yun didn't leave. He watched as Qin Wenin chopped down trees. Not even a day had passed, and Qin Wenin had already chopped down 100 trees. However, he didn't give up and continued chopping. Don't tell me he's preparing to chop down all the trees in the mountain of gravity? The elders in charge of planting trees would definitely feel heartache, Lu Yun mumbled. Lu Yun mumbled. Every single tree here was like a seed. It would allow the ancient trees to grow rapidly, allowing the disciples of the battle sword sect to chop them down. Why is it getting weaker and weaker? Why does it take so long to chop down a single tree? Lu Yun furrowed his brows, feeling somewhat puzzled. He's not using his will of mandates, he's using pure strength to chop down the trees. Yi Lingshuang spoke, her words causing Lu Yun to blink. Yi Lingshuang. At this moment, a voice drifted over from afar. Yi Lingshuang turned her head only to see a silhouette walking over, causing a strange expression to appear on Yi Lingshuang's face. This was the disciple in charge of transmitting messages from the Battle Sword sect. What happened? Here's your letter. The other party passed a letter to Yi Lingshuang. Yi Lingshuang opened it and instantly felt her entire body turning cold. Her countenance turned ashen. Junior sister, what's wrong? Lu Yun asked seriously when he saw the expression on Yi Lingshuang's face. My father is heavily injured, his life is in danger. Yi Lingshuang spoke, her words causing Lu Yun's heart to tremble. He knew who Yi Lingshuang was. She was a princess of an ancient country, and her father was the emperor of a generation. This ancient country had existed for over 10,000 years and was extremely powerful. The internal conflicts were extremely complicated, and Lu Yun faintly knew a little about it. Did the Violet Thunder sect interfere? Lu Yun asked. I don't know. Yi Lingshuang's countenance was still pale. Lu Yun spoke again, let's report this to Master and see if there's a solution. There are also medical experts in the Battle Sword sect. Yi Lingshuang placed the letter down as she replied in a low voice, We've already invited the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Lu Yun's eyes flashed with sharpness as he continued, The newly promoted Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley has already broken through to a 5th-ranked Pill King not too long ago. Not only that, she has also obtained the true inheritance of the Medicine Sovereign. In the current younger generation of the Royal Sacred Region, she can be considered a legendary character. Since we've already invited her, there shouldn't be any problems. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was also a legendary character. It was said that back then when she was sent into the Medicine Sovereign Valley, she was on the verge of death. However, the identity of the person who sent her into the Medicine Sovereign Valley was unknown, and the Medicine Sovereign actually personally acted to save her. Not only that, the Medicine Sovereign used all of his effort to cleanse her marrows and reconstruct her life force. After that, he even imparted all of his knowledge to her, causing this Holy Maiden to soar up like a shooting star. Even the true name of the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was unknown. They won't give up so easily. Yi Lingshuang's heart was in a mess, yet she didn't have the time to think too much. Right now, she didn't know what to do. Let's look for senior brother and let him think of a solution. Let's go. Lu Yun knew that right now, Yi Lingshuang's heart was in a mess. He instantly made his decision and brought Yi Lingshuang away. Yi Lingshuang's heart was still filled with sorrow. A heaven-shaking genius had appeared in the ancient country. From then on, the internal factions of the ancient country grew even more divided. Her elder brother, who was slightly older than her, had outstanding talent and was able to enter the Violet Thunder sect. He didn't even need to pass the examination and was directly sent to the Royal Sacred Sect. This was the promise of the Violet Thunder sect. And now, what level had he grown to? All of this, Qin Wenyin had no idea. He was still chopping trees, and when he was tired, he would take a break before continuing to move the huge boulders. Right now, he was more than willing to do these things, and was extremely optimistic. Occasionally, he would gain some insights and practice his axe on the huge boulder, or brandish his heavenly hammer. Such days passed by extremely contentedly. Although his cultivation base didn't increase, he wasn't in a rush either. When the time comes, success will come naturally. Only with a solid foundation would one's combat prowess grow stronger. Another 2 days passed. Qin Wenyin lay comfortably on the huge boulder. The sunlight cascaded down on him, illuminating the contours of his body. That was the beauty of strength. Right now, the terrifying gravitational force in the canyon gradually faded away. He knew that he was currently undergoing a baptism, and his physique was much stronger compared to before. Junior brother Qin. A voice interrupted Qin Wentian's beautiful dream. Opening his eyes, he saw Lin Shuai standing on top of the canyon. "Senior brother." Qin Wendian sat up as he stared at Lin Shuai. "What's wrong? The entire forest has been chopped down by you, yet you still don't want to come out?" Lin Shuai glanced at the forest as his heart shuddered. This fellow was truly powerful, to think that he could adapt so quickly and even chop down the entire forest. Qin Wendian smiled. After which, he stomped on the ground and soared up into the air, landing at the edge of the canyon. At this instant, without the powerful gravitational force, Qin Wendian felt as though his entire body was as light as a feather. Such a feeling was simply too wonderful. "Senior brother, why are you so free to come over?" Qin Wendian laughed. "Let me tell you something. Your senior sister Yi Lingshuang is the princess of an ancient country with a history of over 10,000 years. However, there are a few powerful kings in the Yi country. In addition, Yi Lingshuang has a cousin who is around the same age as her and is a descendant of a king. His talent is unparalleled and he joined the Violet Thunder sect, causing the Yi clan's struggle for the throne to be extremely intense." Lin Shuai slowly explained, his words causing Qin Wendian's expression to stiffen as he instantly understood. The kings of ancient countries were extremely powerful and they even had the support of the Violet Thunder sect. Most probably, they wanted to seize the throne. The Yi country itself is extremely powerful. Initially, my Battle Sword sect and the Violet Thunder sect shouldn't be involved in their internal strife. But because of some special reasons, the Violet Thunder sect is involved in this. Yi Lingshuang's father, a human emperor, is currently heavily injured and on the verge of death. Hence, the Yi country invited the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley to act. Lin Shuai continued as he turned and walked away. Qin Wendian followed behind Lin Shuai, not saying anything. Since Lin Shuai came here to tell him this, there must be a reason behind it. Lingshuang wishes to return immediately, but I'm worried that something might happen to her. Hence, I stopped her. After all, with her current strength, there's no use for her to return. In fact, she might even be plotted against. At the same time, I've also sent people to investigate the situation in the Yi country. Now that the situation is extremely urgent, my Battle Sword sect is preparing to send some disciples to the capital of the Yi country. Qin Wendian nodded his head lightly. Although he wouldn't be able to change anything with his current cultivation base, since Lin Shuai said this, it was obvious that he hoped for him to go out and roam the world, tempering himself. An instant later, Qin Wendian saw a group of silhouettes preparing to set off. It was none other than Yi Lingshuang and her companions. If you guys are together, no one would dare to plot against Lingshuang. Also, junior brother Qin, you have to remember an unwritten rule. In the royal sacred region, there are many conflicts between the transcendent powers. Heavenly Dipper sovereigns can't interfere in the matters of celestial phenomenon ascendants, but if a Heavenly Dipper sovereign dies because of a conflict between disciples, celestial phenomenon ascendants are forbidden from taking revenge. If not, a war would easily erupt. Lin Shuai spoke, his words causing Qin Wendian's expression to stiffen. He had once experienced the conflict between the transcendent powers of Grand Xia. Once a conflict broke out between the upper echelons of Grand Xia, it would basically be a war between sections. Only when one side was annihilated would the conflict cease. Most probably, the transcendent powers of the royal sacred region also feared war between sects, which was why there was such an unwritten rule. Chapter 524. Within the Battle Sword sect, over 10 young men rode on their flying swords and soared up into the air, transforming into beams of white light. This group of silhouettes were none other than the disciples of the Battle Sword sect who were heading to Yi. Qin Wendian was naturally among them. These disciples were all at the Heavenly Dipper realm. After all, Yi was an ancient country with a history of over 10,000 years. It was impossible for the Battle Sword sect to forcefully interfere with the internal affairs of an ancient country. It was only because of the friendship between them that these disciples were willing to accompany Yi Lingshuang on this trip. At the very least, they could ensure her safety. The leader of this group was a young man in black. His cultivation base was at the 8th level of Heavenly Dipper, and he was the personal disciple of Sword Sovereign Ling Tian, Duan Han. The status of the direct disciples of the Sword Master was generally higher. For example, Duan Han was ranked 9th under Sword Master Ling Tian, but if he was placed among the disciples of the First Mountain, he obviously wouldn't have such a high ranking. However, everyone still called him 9th senior brother. This was the treatment of the direct disciples of the Sword Master. Duan Han's demeanor was extremely cold, completely different from Lin Shuai. He exuded an unmasked sharpness and didn't like to talk much. Such silence added a sense of majesty to him. Junior sister, don't worry too much. Since the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is here, she should be able to temporarily suppress Emperor Ye's injuries. A female disciple beside Yi Lingshuang consoled. Her name was Qiao Yu, and her relationship with Yi Lingshuang in the Battle Sword sect had always been pretty good. Yi Lingshuang nodded lightly, but the worry in her eyes couldn't be masked. I heard that the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is a peerless beauty. I'll be able to meet her soon. How exciting! Lu Yun's eyes gleamed, causing the others to stare at him with disdain. Although this fellow had a lecherous personality, his words always made others feel relaxed. You have no hope. Qiao Yu spoke with disdain. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, a 5th-ranked alchemist. Even the geniuses from the various ancient countries and clans who wished to propose marriage would trample over the gates of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. However, the Medicine Sovereign Valley wouldn't allow them to enter. The most important thing is that the Holy Maiden herself of the Medicine Sovereign Valley likes me. For someone as handsome as me, I might be able to gain her favor. Lu Yun was currently dreaming. Qin Wenyan felt pain in his heart when he heard their words as he involuntarily thought of Mo Qingqing. The Pill Emperor Hall of the past was similar to the current Medicine Sovereign Valley. Such a transcendent power that specialized in pill concoction was a target that all the major powers wanted to recruit. However, he had no idea of Mo Qingqing of the Pill of Qin. When he thought back to the time when the Pill Emperor Hall sent Qingqing to be sacrificed as a sacrifice, flames of rage burned in his heart. He would definitely return to the Pill Emperor Hall. However, was Qingqing still alive in this world? He had once investigated in Grand Xia, but there was no news of Mo Qingqing at all. After he fainted during that battle, Mo Qingqing also completely vanished, as though she had never appeared in Grand Xia before. The Pill Emperor Hall also didn't say anything about her. What are you thinking about? Don't tell me you also have designs on the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley? Lu Yun smiled as he glanced at Qin Wenyan beside him. Qin Wenyan shook his head as he asked, the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is a 5th-ranked alchemist. Is this power very strong? Naturally, but I have no idea how strong they are exactly. Because the Medicine Sovereign Valley doesn't have any conflicts with others, nobody would find trouble with them. Hence, their status in the Royal Sacred Region is transcendent. Not only that, the Medicine Sovereign is a 5th-ranked alchemist. Even for the peak powers including the 9 great sects, who can guarantee that they wouldn't need his help one day. In terms of alchemy, the Medicine Sovereign Valley is even stronger than the Royal Sacred Sect, standing at the pinnacle of the Royal Sacred Region. Lu Yun slowly explained, his words causing Qin Wenyan to silently nod his head. As expected of a transcendent power. On the way, Qin Wenyan and Lu Yun chatted for quite a while. The main point was Lu Yun speaking while Qin Wenyan listened. Other than introducing the situation in the Royal Sacred Region, Lu Yun also brought Qin Wenyan to those good places where beauties were as common as the clouds. This caused Qin Wenyan to be speechless. Half a day later, Qin Wenyan and the rest finally arrived at the capital city of Yi. Within the inner city of the ancient country, soldiers clad in resplendent armor could be seen. The towering city gates seemed to be cast from gold, exuding a simple and unadorned aura. This was the core region of Yi, with the royal palace as well as numerous king residences. The security here was extremely tight, and experts were as common as the clouds. Halt! A loud shout rang out as a golden beam of light shot up into the skies. A general wielded a golden long spear, pointing it at those from the battle sword sect. "Let's go down." Yi Lingshuang spoke. The group of them descended as many armored soldiers soared up into the air, blocking their path. The general in the lead icily stated, "This is an important place for the royal clan of Yi." "Impudent!" Yi Lingshuang coldly snorted. At this moment, she retracted her gentle demeanor, exuding an intense aura of imposingness as she icily spoke. "You actually dare to obstruct this princess?" Only now did that guard notice Yi Lingshuang. A cold smile flickered in his eyes. Now that the Qi king was in control, it wouldn't be long before this woman became a prisoner. Yet she still wanted to act like a princess here? However, this woman was truly beautiful, and since she joined the battle sword sect, they couldn't afford to offend her too much. "So it's Princess Lingshuang. This subordinate has failed in his duty and failed to recognize you. Please forgive me." That general spoke, yet there was no expression of guilt on his face. He turned his gaze onto the others as he spoke. "However, this is an important place for the royal clan. It's not too appropriate for Princess to bring a bunch of strangers here." "Impudent, this princess brought a few friends here as guests. How can I allow you to talk so much?" Yi Lingshuang coldly snorted. "Offending your superiors, take him down for me." She was the princess of Yi, yet a mere guard dared to be so impudent. This was an obvious provocation to her authority. Most probably, her royal father's current situation was extremely dire. Thinking of this, Yi Lingshuang grew even more anxious. But as her command rang out, none of the guards moved. Nobody obeyed. Duan Han's hands trembled. His black robes fluttered in the wind as a cold sword light flashed. Instantly, that guard's countenance drastically changed as he stabbed out with his long spear, emitting a brilliant golden light. Puchi! A black-colored sword pierced through the center of his brows. Momentarily, the countenances of the guards drastically changed as they all erupted forth with tyrannical auras. This group of guards were actually all Heavenly Dipper sovereigns. However, Duan Han swept his gaze over. His deep eyes seemed to shoot out numerous sharp swords. Yi Lingshuang naturally understood Duan Han's intentions when she saw his methods. She coldly snorted, "This man offended his superiors, he shall be executed. If there's anyone else who dares to obstruct us, kill them all without mercy." As the sound of her voice faded, the group of guards stepped out. This time around, nobody dared to obstruct them. Those guards stared at the corpse of their commander as their countenances turned ashen. That was an expert at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, yet he was killed with a single sword strike. Are the people of the battle sword sect really so tyrannical? Those guards felt their hearts trembling, yet they didn't dare to say anything. They didn't expect Duan Han's methods to be so ruthless, directly killing him without saying a word. The members of the battle sword sect continued on their way. This royal territory was extremely majestic, and there were many king residences here, each of which occupied an area of several hundred miles. Occasionally, there would be powerful experts glancing at them in the air, causing Qin Wendian to have a clearer understanding of how powerful the Yi country was. Most probably, the experts from a single king's residence were sufficient to sweep through the entire Grand Xia Empire, let alone the entire Yi country. Finally, a majestic ancient kingdom appeared before their eyes. There were also towering city walls that seemed to be cast from pure gold. A group of figures walked out from within with smiles on their faces. "Why didn't you inform us beforehand that Princess Lingshuang is returning?" An expert in the lead laughed. However, Yi Lingshuang's countenance was extremely terrifying. This was someone from the Frost King Manor, one of her clan uncles. They actually appeared in the royal palace? From this, one could very well imagine how serious the situation here was. Most probably, the entire royal palace was already under their control. After all, the Frost King was extremely close to the Qi King. "I want to see my royal father." Yi Lingshuang faintly spoke. That expert glanced at the members of the battle sword sect beside Yi Lingshuang as he smiled. "The elites of the battle sword sect have truly brought light to our humble Yi country. Please enter the royal palace to take a rest." The others didn't bother with him. They came in such an imposing manner and didn't bother to conceal their presence. Given how powerful the Yi country was, they should have long received news of their arrival. The members of the Battle Sword sect directly stepped through the air and entered the royal palace. Right now, in this majestic royal palace, there were armored soldiers everywhere, waiting for their arrival. From this, one could see how tense the situation was. Yi Lingshuang's heart was filled with worry for her father. She sped towards the direction of the Human Emperor Palace, like a gust of wind. Outside the Human Emperor Palace, there were currently many experts gathered here. It was as though all the hegemons of the various powers were gathered here. Yi Lingshuang's gaze swept over as she stared in a certain direction. Over there was a young man with a countenance like lightning. He was clad in royal robes and exuded an extraordinary air of imposingness. His deep eyes seemed to be able to see through people. Not only that, around this young man, there were several other experts of the same generation. All of them were extraordinary and exuded a tyrannical aura. Each and every one of them was an elite among the younger generation, incomparably dazzling. When the gazes of the young men from the Battle Sword sect met with their gazes, a terrifying sharpness permeated the air. Experts from the Violet Thunder sect. Qin Wendian silently mused. There was no need to doubt that the young man in royal robes was none other than the Prince Luyun spoke of. The son of the Qi King, a heavens chosen from the Violet Thunder sect, a demon-level genius of his generation. Those beside him were definitely from the same generation as him from the Violet Thunder sect. If one were to say that the Violet Thunder sect didn't participate in the dark, wanting to allow the Qi King to control the Yi country, no one would believe it. Yi Lingshuang's silhouette flickered as she flew towards the direction of the Human Emperor Palace. However, a group of silhouettes blocked her path. Princess, the Human Emperor is seriously ill. The Holy Maiden from the Medicine Sovereign Valley is currently treating him. Princess, please don't wait outside. My royal father is seriously ill, how can I not be by his side? It's fine. Yi Lingshuang spoke. The people in front could see the determination in her eyes as they opened up a path for her, blocking Duan Han and the others from advancing. You guys wait here for me. Yi Lingshuang turned her head and spoke to Duan Han and the others. Since they were already in the royal palace, there shouldn't be anyone who would dare to harm Yi Lingshuang in public. Hence, Duan Han and the others would wait here. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.